Start with the meeting. I
Unbelievable.
want to call this meeting to order, the regular meeting of the City Council. Madam Clerk, can you do a roll call?
Cruz.
Present.
Percassi.
Here.
Frazier.
Here.
Morris. Here. Taylor. Here. Mandelbaum.
Present.
Brightwell.
Here.
Mr. President, you have a quorum?
Very excellent, thank you. As another house cleaning event, I want to indicate that we will start using Robert's Rules of Order on a regular basis. Because we had the lady come in, we paid her, and we're looking at doing this again on an annual basis, but we will be enhancing on what we learned the last time, or we utilized the last time. So that will be an impetus for make sure we utilize Robert's Rules of Order. And the other thing, I want to reinforce the fact that the door at the end of this chamber is for employees only. And with that, the first study session item is the National Trail Bus. Go ahead, Mr.
Good evening. We're here to discuss PZR 18-0002 and PSLU 18-0003. First item is a rezoning request, so petitioner Noah Krause, engineers on behalf of the owners Albert and Richard Frank. The property is located at 20921 and 20953 Maple Ridge Ave. This is north of 8 Mile, just east of Evergreen. Property combined totals just over 1 acre. Existing is IL Light Industrial, and request to rezone to I1 Industrial. Of course, this thing is frozen.
He'll give me a signal.
This is existing conditions, existing photos around the subject property. Future land use does support rezoning to heavy industrial. Current zoning is light industrial with vehicular parking to the west. And the proposed zoning is industrial. We also have a special use request at the same location for continued use of the property as a transportation service provider. It's an existing legal non-conforming use. This will help them get to a conforming status. This is the proposed site plan, which I'll let Noah Krause talk with in greater detail. Proposed landscape screening along the western property line and landscape screening along the frontage of Maple Ridge. This is a proposed new building, new office and storage maintenance facility within 18 months of the rezoning and special use taking effect. And during our discussion with administration, we wanted to determine whether or not they had access to public sewer, which one of their lots does provide access to public sewer, water and sewer in green, and sewer only in red. With that, I'd like to invite the applicant's representative to come up and actually get into greater detail of what they're proposing to do on the site and answer any questions that the council may have. And I'll be prepared to discuss this further.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jeff Wood. I'm with Noah Krause Engineers. I'm representing the Franks in the application process this evening. As far as the overall process goes, Mr. Frank has been a business owner at this location for 36 years, and he is endeavoring to make improvements to the property for the long haul. His ultimate goal is to redevelop the property. There's a lot of technology changes that are occurring right now as it relates to busing and how busing will be supported in the future. And there's some unknowns with respect to that. In general terms, busing is going to an all-electric type of a product, and that's going to have a significant impact on how he will be running his business into the future. So from that perspective, Mr. Frank is working towards the site planning component of this, but there's a lot of unknowns out there right now with exactly how his business model is going to change. As was reported, the zoning for this property is supported in your future land use as an industrial. A lot of the businesses and properties around Mr. Frank's property are zoned as industrial as well. And as we've been working with staff, we've secured approvals through the Planning Commission to get to this point. Everything has been unanimously approved through those processes. And really, we're at this last step here to be able to move forward with what we want to do. So as we've discussed with staff, there's been certain things that have been asked of the applicant, of the Franks, to be able to bring his site into as much of compliance as we possibly can without wasting the investment for the future dollars. You know, what we don't want to do is go out and remodel and put a whole new facade on the building when we know in a few years here the building's going to get torn down. So we're really trying to focus on taking care of staff recommendations that make sense today so that we can move forward with the rezoning, get the special land use, and then allow the Franks to continue with their planning process and bringing in a new facility to this location. So we're kind of in that limbo zone, if you will, of being able to develop a full site plan at this point. But at the same time, we respect what staff would like us to do and to bring the site into as much compliance as possible to zoning ordinances and requirements. So with that, some of the things that were addressed as a part of staff comments. Staff wanted us to go back to the site plan.
No, go in the other direction.
Sorry. Okay. Is that a laser pointer too?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. So staff wanted us to provide for an accessible parking space and provide for ramping to get into the building. We feel that there's, on the interim basis, that's something that we can accomplish, and we're more than happy to provide with respect to that. So all the barrier-free signing, dimensions on driveways, barrier-free access to the finished floor of the building, we want to comply with that. As a general rule, the type of business this is, there's very, very little public interaction. We just don't have customers that come to this location. It's very, very infrequent that they do, but in any event, we want to comply with that particular component of the requirement. So that was items like 1 through 6 on staff comments. As far as defining parking spaces on the gravel lot, we're going to provide bumper blocks along the north, direction here. North property line here to be able to identify where those employee parking spaces will be, so we are complying with that requirement. As far as the sidewalk frontage here, there was a request that a 5-foot wide sidewalk be placed along the frontage. We fully expect that as a part of redeveloped site plan that drive approach locations are going to change. There is no existing connectivity to that sidewalk currently, so we were seeking a deferment of installing the sidewalk until we physically build the new site plan, if that was appropriate.
Excuse me, through the chair. So the condition would be either that you install it or you put up a bond for the value of the sidewalk to be installed.
There was a request that the fix all damaged fencing along the site, scrape and paint the fence as needed. So what we are going to do is address the frontage fence. It is in disrepair along the frontage, so we're going to make all the repairs, get rid of all of the vines or any kind of herbaceous material that might have grown up through the fence. We'll take care of all of that along the frontage. In addition to that, back to the landscape plan, provide for a landscape buffer along the frontage here, do the tree plantings and invest in the landscaping to, again, beautify the frontage of the development. As far as curbing along the islands and things, go back again. Again, we felt that placing curbs at this location is premature in the sense that this is all going to get torn down and redeveloped. And so from our standpoint, we didn't want to invest today in putting in money into improvements that are just going to be taken out in the coming years. So from that standpoint, that addresses, I think, a lot of the site questions that staff had. One thing that did come up was how the sanitary sewer is handled. There is a sanitary sewer connection to the city system, which was inspected and approved by the city. And I believe it's on the south side of the property. And I've got some photos. There's actually a dump port where the buses discharge sanitary sewer into that. And then just pass those around if you could. This is very common type of practice as it relates to this type of, campgrounds and things. It's a very similar type situation. There's a hose that's on the bus, and you basically discharge it into the dump station. There is no oil grease separator. This is all human waste that comes from the bus. So from that perspective, there's no oil grease separator. That's typically, they're not selling greasy foods or anything like that on the bus. This is just, again, human waste, which is pretty typical and typically doesn't require a oil separator to address that. Outside of that, I think I need to address the time horizon. I know that if it was...
I have two other items I want to make sure the council's aware of. You go back to the landscape plan. There was a request for evergreen screening because you have a deciduous riparian area with the stream that we're requesting that be put in, and then your parking area be shifted to allow for proper snow storage.
Yeah, I don't think we have any issues with anything that we need to do from a landscaping and a screening standpoint.
And then as far as, I understand you don't want to do major improvements to the building, but there's some code issues. You have a sign that's half missing. So those types of things will have to be brought up to meet our standards.
I don't know what the list is, but whatever needs to be done, we will comply with the code issues.
And then as part of the special use conditions will be that you're either applying for a building permit or have substantially started the process for a building, storage and maintenance building within 18 months of approval of a special use.
Yeah, I think the 18 months is what we want to address. I'm not sure that we're able to commit to an 18-month time frame from the perspective of, as we described, the technology that is currently evolving right now. We don't know that we can put a timeline to that. We're looking at these buses, the new buses are probably coming out within the next 2 years. And it's something that we're going to have to really get our arms around with respect to how we're addressing from a site management and site planning standpoint. So it becomes difficult.
I'm a little confused on how, whether it's gas or electric, how that would affect storing your buses inside the building.
I think it boils down to is the actual physical the type of equipment that you're gonna need within the building itself is where it comes down to, so.
And one of the issues to the council is they're requesting rezoning and special use. They have a long-standing non-conforming situation. I wouldn't want to be in a position of recommending a blank check. And I think it's reasonable, and we have past precedents where we allow a reasonable amount of time for the building to go forward. And if conditions change within 18 months, there's a process where they can come and ask for an extension on their approval. But I think our goal here is to get the site cleaned up with reasonable conditions and a reasonable time frame. So I want you to consider that instead of having a blank check, we'll get back to you in 3 to 5 years. And that's why I want this to be brought up tonight before we bring you back on the 30th.
Sure.
We're trying to be fair and reasonable to and considerate to our small businesses. At the same time, this condition has existed for quite some time. You're coming in requesting rezoning and special use, and these are reasonable conditions for us to discuss as part and parcel to the council considering approving the special use.
Well, I certainly don't take exception to what you're saying.
Okay,
think
I just
it's
want to make sure
really-
we're on the table.
It's just a business situation from the standpoint of being able to, a lot of the things that we have to do to make the improvements are taking capital away from what we want to do to accomplish the future improvements. So between the planning and the capital for the future improvements, we're hoping to have an extended period of time to be able to address the planning component of what we're doing, making sure that we're planning it out correctly.
All right, council? Mrs. Frazier?
Yeah, the building that you're gonna construct, is that to house all of the buses, or is that just a maintenance barn? So that if there's maintenance work that be done on the buses, that you take them in there and then park them outside?
Correct.
Is that,
The latter statement. So there'd be some limited amount of storage of buses on the inside, but maintenance and, places for staff to do what they need to do, wash bays, that kind of stuff. And then the buses mainly will be stored on the exterior.
okay, that's a pretty tired looking piece of property. And there are some houses that are direct across the street from there. And I'm not sure I'd wanna live in a house directly across the street from there without having some work being done to clean it up, to make it a little bit better looking. And I would encourage at least the landscaping, so it looks like it, because there's a lot of dead landscaping around there. And it's, like I say, it's a pretty tired looking piece of property that as soon as the Michigan spring begins, I'd like to see some landscaping done to kind of spruce it up a little bit so that the people across the street, that looks like one of the houses is empty. I don't know if it's the one that,
Yeah, I'm not familiar
with a
with.
big bay window in front of it. It's pretty empty. But, I think, if you're gonna stay there, you've been there 36 years, and if you're gonna stay there, it sure needs to be cleaned up a little bit.
I think that's the goal of what we're trying to accomplish here.
Because I would presume that the water that they use is fairly limited, except when you watch the buses and stuff. But they have the sewer. I know that the sewer costs are a calculation from the amount of water that's used. Are we getting our money's worth?
Mr. Chairman, I just had a conversation with our city engineer. I think we need to look at this. This is a special disposal
Yes.
situation, and you are correct. Our sewage disposal includes on buying water.
Yes.
And was not aware that we just had a discharge.
Right.
So we need to put that under the microscope per se.
Okay. Because somebody's paying for it.
The other thing, if they are washing vehicles, then how the materials that are moving off site, are they being filtered and such?
Right.
And that'll be an engineering item.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Ms. Taylor?
How many buses are we talking?
Right now, we're operating 10,
10 buses.
but have operated 13 in the past.
And you're not looking to purchase any more?
Not going over 13, no.
Okay.
But upgrade, purchasing new equipment, but, you know, not getting larger.
Okay. And what time frame? How long are you considering, or are you asking us to consider if you're objecting to the 18 month?
Well, ideally, it would be no timeline, but I understand that's not gonna happen here, so. Really, as long as you guys would be comfortable. I think we're looking at probably, in all honesty, it's gonna be a couple of years to bring the technology in, so we understand what we're dealing with. And then to start that site plan approval process and building process, we're probably looking at a 3 to 4 year time frame to be able to be under construction.
And if I could, through the chair, I mean, we have a practice where applicant can come in and ask for a 1-year extension. 18 months out, better handle what's going on in the market, and then if there is a logical reason to extend, then we could grant them an extension of a year, but to allow 3, 4, or blank check, that's just not protocol with what we've been doing.
Mr. Costa?
Yeah, you know, I hear you, but, you know, I heard something was going on along 8 Mile Road and those roads that are coming up north from 8 Mile Road. I dealt with, that Michigan Mulch and that road and you know, that just looks like something from Appalachia. You know, I mean, this, and for someone just to have a piece of property and put it to use, I expect them to fix up the property, and live up to the codes of the city, and perform as a businessman. And that being rude, but I tell you, I drive 8 Mile Road, go up and down those roads all the time, and it's embarrassing. You even see old outhouses back of houses, and it's not the way Southfield wants to develop. And you're gonna have new tech companies come in by the hundreds, and you have that nice piece of land, and I just soon see it marketed to somebody that wants to develop it and develop it use. You have the 8 Mile Road Boulevard Association that's working very hard to improve all the sites along 8 Mile Road. I don't think that this fits in with their goals.
Mr. Costa, that's it?
That's it.
And Mr. Mandelbaum?
You mentioned that they do work on the buses, on the site. Do they dispose of, how do they dispose of, if they're doing oil changes or anything else, some of that more hazardous or some of that waste when they're working
I'm
on
not
the
familiar
buses?
with how they maintain.
No,
If you could come up here and identify yourself, please.
My name is Al Frank. We have an oil storage, used dirty oil storage container on our property. And when we change oil, oil is deposited in that container. And we have the company that supplies our oil, Vesco Oil. When they deliver us new oil, they also send a tanker out and suck out that storage tank that we have. Also, just to add a little bit, part of putting up a new garage and a new building, because we generate oil, we are looking into, and one of the things that we were intending on doing was putting in an oil burner for used oil. And those, you know, we pay to have the oil carted away. We might as well use it, take it to the building from there. Those are the things we're looking at. About the technology of buses changing to the electric buses, they're basically state-of-the-art. The manufacturer that we're using right now, that we buy buses from in Belgium, is taking orders in 2019 for their new electric bus. We don't know if it's gonna fit our needs yet, but it's gonna be revamped, it's gonna be beautiful. They can get the range of distance, even halfway to, the buses we operate now can go 1,200 miles on a tank of diesel fuel. We can get 600 miles on a charge to batteries, and they're in the 300 to 400 mile range, then we're gonna start ordering those coaches. You're not generating dirty oil, you're not burning diesel fuel. It's just a plus. For 3 years, I've been using them in Europe in the transit system. And now they're gonna come to this country with it, so it is something. We don't know if they're gonna change where the restroom is on a bus and drop it on the other side of the bus, is why we wanna wait to make sure. When we went back and put in a site plan years ago, because of the zoning issues we had, and we couldn't build the building, but what was drawn up, that building is obsolete right now. We couldn't build that today and use it. Buses are taller, buses are wider, buses are longer. So I've been playing for 25 years with a magnetic board, trying to get the right building. We've waited this long, and I love buses, and I want to get state of the art. We're gonna dump our toilets inside the building. The new sanitary, new sewer system, and new toilet drops that has no splash, no waste, nothing. And those are our intents. We obviously, yes, we've been there for 36 years, and the term you used, we don't belong there, right? I mean, it
It's
was
a non-conforming.
non-conforming. Well, if we're gonna go through and spend money to conform, we wanna conform. And we do business within the city of Southfield. We got customers, happy to be. I live in the city, you know, don't have too many complaints other than the weather. So, you know, if you have any questions, I try to answer them.
Mr. Cruz, you have? No. Seeing no other questions, is it the consent that we will send this on to the consent agenda?
No, excuse me, this would be a public hearing scheduled for the 30th.
Okay, all right.
So if you're comfortable that you've answered enough questions for us to get them on the 30th. So we'll continue to work with them in the meantime.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you. Yep, thank you, sir. Just follow up here, Jeff.
All right, the next item would be the presentation and discussion regarding special use request of Dorsham Martin for the United Auto Division. Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to remind you about Robert's Rules of Order. Mrs. Coco reinforced that what we should be doing, and we will have a class later down the road, so we have to build on what we learned at the last time. And I have an old quote that the ritual of practice improves the power of the warrior. So the ritual of practice, we will entertain the ritual of practice of Robert's Rules of Order.
Through the chair.
That's a fun
Our next item is special use request. Yes, I do.
We have the ritual,
Dash 30002. Petitioners Dorsham Martin Associates on behalf of the owners of B&B Property Investments. The property site is located at 21800 West 8 Mile Road, between Lawson Road and Evergreen Road. The use is to allow the property for tow truck dispatch and auto collision repair. This is the existing site. There's 4 buildings on the site. The frontage of over 320 feet. Existing conditions. The current zoning is I1. This is the layout. Some building elevation improvements, and I don't see our landscaping plan, but they are proposing to do some frontage landscaping from 8 Mile to screen up the site. There's a fuel storage tank that we're still waiting on fire inspection regarding that location. And they have some snow storage areas designated in the site, but some of those conflict with existing or proposed landscaping. So with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Dorchin to come up, talk about the details of the special use.
Good evening, I'm Sam Dorchin, Dorchin Martin Associates, 29895 Greenfield in Southfield. I'm representing the owners who are not here this evening. Their primary use is a towing company. They have 69 tow trucks. They, according to them, are one of the busiest AAA responders in the area. Let me respond first to one of Terry's comments, and that has to do with the landscape plan. We have discussed the landscape plan with the city landscape engineer. Designer. We received site plan approval for this particular site a little more than 2 years ago. And there's still a sign or two on one of the buildings. It had been owned by, or rented by Midwest Roofing. They left. The owner has now put it up for sale, and that is what looks like 4 buildings. It's actually 2 pair of buildings, and the owners of the towing service found that there's probably too much building on the site for them. But to get back to finish up the landscape plan, Noreen, the landscape designer, reviewed the plans, the landscape plans, and inspected them, and has approved the notes that we have on our site plan.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
All right, Sam, if we're gonna talk about that, what she approved a couple years ago did not include the amendments to the zoning ordinance which require landscape screening of parking lots along 8 Mile. So you have to comply with that, regardless of what was approved in the past.
We will.
Well, it sounded like you're going down the path like you already received approval a couple years ago, and therefore you don't have to do anything.
No, that's not what I've indicated. We've approached the landscape designer about what we have. She reviewed our notes now. She hasn't given us approval.
Irrespective, at the planning commission meeting, I raised the issue that landscape screening needs to happen. And we have yet to receive a plan that shows that.
Okay, well, that will be a part of the approval. We will have a plan.
Well, tonight is to determine whether or not you're going to be scheduled for the 30th. And we gave an extra week to comply with these requirements. We still don't have those plans, so we need the assurance that you're either going to have them on the plans before the 30th, or I'm going to recommend that we postpone this till next month. You've been
I will
splicing
provide you-
words here getting up to this. You've been very careful on how you say things, and we still don't have the compliance from the recommendation from the planning commission.
It was not our intention to not submit an approvable plan. We will have a plan, a landscape plan, for you within a week. I see the owners are here. They just came in. But to continue on, again, the buildings on the site are in excess of what they need for their current plans. which are to have the towing service, and also to have an auto repair and a vehicle collision repair business. All of that can go into this first building, marked units 3 and 4, and we have sufficient parking on the site for the trucks. Not all the trucks are on the site at one time. Many times the drivers take their trucks home, but there is sufficient parking on the site for all of the uses that I've described. The auto repair will take place in this first building, this area here, and the next building marked Unit 3 will be primarily for the collision and vehicle washing. And with that, I hope to be able to answer any further questions.
Before you go to questions through the chair, can you talk about the upgrades to the buildings? Next slide.
You mean the elevations?
Yes.
That we provided? In addition to the landscaping that will be brought to approval, this portion of the building is existing. It is newer than the one to the left, the lower one. We will clean up the face of the building, provide a new entry door, awnings over the door and the windows, and this face is much farther forward than this. This is about 80 feet back. And so in order to tie the two together, this space is that facade that heads back to this. It's currently all white, it's just painted block. We propose to paint it to match this existing masonry treatment here. This is existing to remain. It's in very nice condition.
Can we go to questions now? Mr. Placid.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I don't think he's ready to come before us. I mean, I just, I'd like to see the landscaping, I'd like to see the way this goes. I'm getting really fussy about 8 Mile Road, you know, drive down it, and part of the 8 Mile Road Boulevard, we have a bunch of come up, by the way, and, you know, trying to look to improve it. You go down into west of the city of Southfield, and you see new corporations going in, redoing all the buildings, tearing them down and building new buildings. I mean, this is one of the reasons why we work so hard with 8 Mile Road is because, you know, there's transportation, there's lighting, there's employment-ready places. The old National Guard Army got used, and I just think that this is not the right place for this, and I think that you're trying to make an elephant out of a canary, you know? And I just don't think it works. It's just, you know, I want to see a plan of where everything's going to go, and you're going to paint this building and put a facade on the other building. I mean, I want to spruce up the road. And there's no reason why these companies that come here want to do business can't be like every other business along the way. Look at Woodward Avenue and 8 Mile Road, you got a big, beautiful shopping center. I mean, and you look here, and you've got nothing but junk cars laying along the road. You got all the way from Telegraph east. It looks like a junkyard. And I think it's got to stop. It's just got to stop. These corporations come in, you know, you can come in and do what everybody else does in these other communities. Fix them up nice and make them, you know, not turning them into something they're not. They're building new, and I know it costs money to tear it down, but, you know, there's line behind the 8 Mile Road in most of the cities with the nice landscaping now. You know, the buildings are set back. You come in the city of Southfield, they're almost on the curbs. And I just get tired and embarrassed when you go down 8 Mile Road. We started the 8 Mile Road Boulevard Association here in Southfield, and we're the ones that are coming up the worst. And so I don't think we're ready for this plan.
And through the chair, I want to piggyback on Mr. Fracasse's comments. The two that we had tonight are examples where businesses want to come in and do the bare minimum. And maybe we should not even get them through the process if they can't make some type of improvements. They were asking for special use, they're asking for something that's out of the ordinary. Our special use requirements talk about aesthetics and circulation and harmony, and we work very hard trying to get the applicants to be prepared tonight with proper landscape plans, proper drawings. And I'm a little frustrated when I have to put this up and present this to you. And we try to accommodate our businesses and not hold them back. But if we're not getting compliant, maybe we should table this. Or I'm going to recommend denial if they can't comply. And I mean, I'm here to work at the board's discretion, but these have been very frustrating plans. And I know we want the business, we want good business partners, but they got to be willing to meet us halfway.
Ms. Morris.
Well, that was gonna be my question for you, Terry. If you really didn't think it was ready, you know, why is it before us this evening?
We had assurances all the way leading up until about 2 hours ago that we were going to get proper plans put into here. So again, I am, you know, we try to work with the businesses and give them the proper time. We were on the phone several times, several emails, and I had the assurances, and then when I pulled this up, we didn't get what we asked for.
Okay.
Can I respond to that?
Go ahead.
Thank you. With regard to the landscape plan, I think I was clear that we did contact the landscape designer. Now, it was, I believe, no longer ago than Friday, possibly, that I was asked for the landscape plan, and I responded with an email that we had approached the city landscape designer, and she was satisfied with what we had provided. No one had asked for a new landscape plan until the planner gave us that requirement either Friday or today.
Through the chair, Mr. Dorchin, Mr. Spence and I had a conference call with you midweek, explaining exactly what we were looking for.
But I had responded about providing.
And I detailed in his email as a follow-up 4 items that were missing.
Well, if there was a misunderstanding on my part, I had no problem getting a landscape plan. I have.
At this time, I do recommend that we postpone.
I heard you, that is the council in your favor, is consent. I agree. You guys, this going back and forth right here is not appropriate for getting anything approved tonight. Long as you'll pass it on, so. We would take Mr. Crow's recommendation that we postpone this to the appropriate time that he sees fit for it to come back before us. Okay, moving on to the next item, item number 3. Approval of parking license agreement with Providence Hospital.
I'll start, and then obviously if others want to join in, that's great too. What you have in front of you is a proposal from Providence Hospital. They would like to be granted a license to use about a little over 2 acres of land on the former Northland property owned by the city. I apologize, I meant to include the diagram with my item, so I passed it out here tonight. The red shaded area would be where that license agreement is being proposed. It's a 1-year agreement with the right of the city to just terminate for any reason on 60 days notice. So it's kind of like the auto live situation where somebody needs to use it temporarily. We don't right now have a current use for it, but in the event something comes up and the city wants to terminate, they give the notice and the Providence would have to discontinue using this for parking. Mr. Sotis has calculated a license fee which is comparable per acre in terms of what Autoliv is paying, and so you'll see that in that write-up as well. And if there's consensus of this, it would be on the regular agenda this evening.
You know, the steering committee from Northland reviewed this. The presentation was made by the Providence people as to their needs. They do know that something may come up and they would have to have time to vacate that property. They're well aware of it, but they need parking now, and they're willing to put some amenities into it to make it doable. And as far as I'm concerned, we should help them out.
Any additional question? Mr. Mandelbaum?
So this is, through the chair,
Yeah.
this is,
Let's start.
to the attorney. This is for, you mentioned all the red shaded. Does that
Yes.
include this shade up here?
No, just this shaded area.
Show me.
I'm sorry,
We're
right
checking
here,
things. We're
that
checking.
shaded area,
Not
right.
the second shaded
Right,
part.
right.
Okay, and is there built-in an extension after 12 months if we need?
Sure, certainly, if they wanted to continue using it and we have nothing going at that particular moment in terms of development, it can be extended, obviously, and they would ask for that, and we'd bring it back and ask council if you'd be so inclined, so.
I don't know, I guess the last question, the payment is just going to the general fund, or is it going into, where would that money go
Northland?
It would go to Northland, the same fashion that we treated the
Autoliv?
Autoliv money, which is the larger triangle above that red area.
Okay.
And also, by the way, they'll be doing the snow removal, so, you know, there won't be any obligation to the city to take care of that
And the-
piece of property.
And based on your letter, they'll also have the insurance and everything else?
Absolutely, yeah, indemnification insurance, the whole
Okay.
thing, right?
Thank you.
All right. And I see this is a continuation of the partnership with Providence and the relationship with what we're trying to do at Northland. So if there are no additional questions, council, we will send this on to the consent agenda of tonight. Item number 4, receipt of bid on section 15 Evergreen Trail water main and paving improvement.
Good evening, everybody. So this project, it was actually about exactly a year ago, we went out to bids for the Section 15 project. This is a water main replacement project as well as road improvements. We had bid this originally with the intention of constructing it last year, then for budgetary reasons, it never came before you for award. The contractor has agreed to hold their prices. We got good prices a year ago for this project, and we are asking council to award to Paymar Enterprises this evening on the consent agenda, if you so agree. I just wanted to review some of the scope of the work. So this is the north half of our Evergreen Trail subdivision. There is a map included as part of the item. And the full mile of Winchester between Lasser and Evergreen Road. So besides all the water main replacement, we've got an asphalt road reconstruction on Berkshire from Ledgestone up to Winchester. And the rest of the subdivision of Evergreen Trail has concrete patching along with patching due to the water main work. And Winchester Street is going to be a pavement inlay. So with the pavement inlay, for the most part, the curbs stay in place, all the travel lanes of the pavement come out. we're reconstructing that in asphalt. This project, I came before council in February of 2017 and talked about traffic calming measures along Winchester, which council approved, and we have incorporated those into this project. There are going to be some bump-ins at the intersections, just narrowing the road, also making a shorter path for pedestrians crossing the road. There's gonna be some mid-block chokers also that brings the road a little more narrow. And then there will be a roundabout installed at Devonshire and Winchester. That's midpoint between Lasser and Evergreen. It's just gonna be a small, single-lane roundabout at that location. So all of these items will work to help slow traffic down. It's a pretty wide expanse of concrete right now. Kind of looks like a runway out there, and people drive as if it is. So we're gonna get them to slow down with some of these improvements, and certainly the pavements in these areas are ready for some attention as well. During construction, the road through traffic will actually be closed at Devonshire as you're traveling along Winchester. All the traffic will be directed one direction, going out. So from Devonshire, if you're east of Devonshire, you can travel east on Winchester to reach Evergreen. If you're west of Devonshire, you can travel west to reach Lasser Road. The other connecting roads will be the posted detours. So on Concord, if you're coming from Lasser, or Berkshire off of 11 Mile if you're coming from the east side. So the Winchester will go first and get that all finished, and then we'll dig into the rest of the Evergreen Trail subdivision there. Overall, this project is a $4.8 million investment. This is paid for with water sewer funds and our road bond construction funds.
Council? Ms. Taylor?
Question, is this the same company that you used before for doing the work?
Paymar has done work in the city before in our section 34 down around 8 and Evergreen. They did those projects a couple of years ago, and then last year they were in that section 24 area 3 project, which was on the north side of 10 miles on Pierce, Jeanette, and Hilton. That was Paymar Enterprises. They are one of our pre-qualified contractors.
What about the one that was doing Franklin, in front of the Franklin apartments? Where they had the road, it was terrible. They left the road worse than what it was when they started.
On Franklin?
In front of the Franklin apartments. That little short street. It's a very short street. I mean, it's horrible. Yeah, you know.
Where they put in the circle.
There's Northwestern and 11 Mile. It just goes, it's just a little section.
So if you mean the configuration of
the
how the
streets.
road used to come up north and take that turn, and now it goes through the roundabout?
You know, I mean, you're closer to Northwest, you know what the Dunkin' Donuts is, where it goes right around, it's
Oh.
right in front of the Franklin. The road was just tore up. They put gravel over it instead of leaving it with the concrete that was there. It was just terrible. And I don't know, it's not just there, but that's the last one that I remember because I got so many calls from people in the Franklin apartments. But when the repair was being done, the road was left worse than it was before they started.
Yeah, that was most likely due to a utility repair. That could have been, like maybe from a water main break that they left that as temporary. But definitely, when temporary cuts are made like that and there's stone or something put back temporarily, once it's all finished, is it all finished now, the repaving there?
But it's still not like it was. And then just like on Webster, it's right off the Southfield road, it was down to, I think First Street.
Yeah, I know that area.
But they did repair that, and it was left that way most of the summer. But it was really just gravel and it was just terrible. My question is somebody gonna be inspecting that so that this kind of gravel and the street is left worse than what it is when they first start?
Yeah, I mean, this is a real capital project. Sometimes those other areas where there's something temporary going on, a contractor may come in and do a repair, that's an underground crew that leaves, and then we schedule the paving contractor to come in to take care of small spot areas. And sometimes there is a lag between that, that's typically more emergency type work. This is gonna be full-time inspection, and once you see construction start, it's gonna continue. They'll probably start in about a month, and this is a big project, so this is gonna go through November. And when the contractor is out there working, which should be every day, we have inspectors on site the entire time. So certainly there's things that come up. There's, we pass out flyers and make sure that residents and have proper contact info, because they're out there every day with something. Sometimes after a big rain, like we had yesterday, you may have some stone out for temporary safe passage across the road, and that can need attention. So we do make sure that the residents know who to call if they have any issues with the conditions out
You said
there.
that's music to my ears, is that you're gonna have inspection all the time.
Mhm.
Because that was one of the things that came up in one of the meetings that we were talking about, I think, Mr. Perkazzi, is the inspections. Because how can a road be finished and it's this far away from the curb and you have all kinds of problems after construction? When was it ever inspected? So that was one of the questions. So if you're gonna have inspection and you're letting the residents know, which is another good thing, because that was the other complaint. They didn't know how long or what days they could go out of their, back out of their driveway, and all those little things that people do on a day-to-day basis. So, and the other thing you answered was how long it was gonna take. So in about a month to November. So all my questions were answered. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Perkassi.
Yeah, the nature of that Winchester up, very concerned about how much base they put in, and if it's compacted enough, and if it stays as wet as it has been, it's really gonna be a problem of getting that thing really compacted. If it's not compacted, the asphalt's gonna stop. And that's what we see down Evergreen Road now. And I just am very concerned about the work that's being done on our roads, and I'd rather do less roads and more inspections, and make sure that these roads that are done, give us 5, 10, 20 years maybe.
Yeah, this is just shy of a total reconstruction. So this pavement, this isn't just a simple maintenance project on Winchester. This is a pretty heavy construction project. So there is an existing stone base under the concrete that's there now. And when we remove that old concrete, then we just dress up any additional areas that seem soft under there now. Dress those up with a little more stone so that we can get the asphalt down. Yep. Absolutely.
And at Evergreen and Winchester, that's a mess. The guys that were working on that Winchester Evergreen, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead.
It doesn't blend. It doesn't blend in. You get an Evergreen Road, you got part of it that isn't done, some is done, and how they did Winchester where the island was and that. In other words, it doesn't. It's messed up. It just doesn't smoothly go in a Evergreen Road.
Well, intersections are challenging grade-wise when you're meeting the two roads. That portion of Evergreen from just south of Winchester up to 12 Mile was not a total reconstruction. We milled off the old asphalt overlay, did some base repair of bad areas that we could see that we had base failure underneath some concrete. So we replaced some concrete slabs and then gave it, it's just 1.5 inches of asphalt. That was actually a pretty light rehab project for that half mile right there. The rest of the project along Evergreen, that 2 mile stretch, of course, south of Winchester was totally reconstructed. That was in the worst condition, and we were able to secure the funding for the total reconstruction. But we spent about $500,000 on that half mile between Winchester and 12 Mile. And it's probably, we're hoping to get 5 to 7 years out of that, and we will probably be back kind of where we were. Definitely we made some repairs to the base and some slab repairs, but the next thing that road probably really needs is a total reconstruction. Total reconstruction would have cost about $3 million.
That's already busted up. It's already cracked. sorry, the southbound lanes are all cracked. The edging where they mend together, they're all cracked. It's, I don't know what they're gonna do with it. There's not enough, to paste it together. I mean, it's, you know, if they do any kind of filler in there, it's, you know, you have a line, for example, right at Winchester and Evergreen, I walked that now, and you got a white line from the previous marking, where they're supposed to put asphalt over it and the top, and you got about 8 feet of the white line that was underneath still showing. That's how bad it is.
Well,
In
there
other words,
was,
it's a triangular, it's a triangular piece, and it's wider at this end and it is that way, and right in that crevice, you see the white line, and they didn't even put asphalt over it.
it all has new asphalt, so that was probably from temporary striping that you're seeing.
Well, it's slower than the rest. I'll have to walk with you.
Look at it.
Mr. Frazier? Yes, I have several questions. First of all, are any of the contractors that bid on this the same contractor that worked in Magnolia?
No.
Okay.
VIL was the second low bidder, and they were the contractor that did the work in Magnolia.
They did?
Yes.
Why are they still on our list?
They still meet our pre-qualification.
But do they meet our expectations?
Mr. Zorn on it.
Lee, can you inform council the changes we made in bid contracts, particularly the dress up? The VIL, we were satisfied with their road construction, it was their dress up, and we made changes to the contract on dress ups, if you can advise council of that.
Yeah, I mean, we're basically just, we're trying to get a better handle on the restoration in particular. All these contractors are very qualified getting pipe in the ground and getting these roads paved. That's their specialty. So the restoration and getting the people's lawns and grasses back to an acceptable level, that's the biggest challenge with all of these. And part of it is patience. Grass isn't instantly gonna look like a lush lawn, you know, in one season. You need a few growing seasons. But we're working with DPW to establish for new contracts what is going to be the contractor's responsibility, making sure they're doing a little more stringent testing on the topsoil quality that they're putting down, and making sure we've got good seed coverage, and then quickly kind of turning it over to the city. And that way we can come in with our own crews, spot as we need to, and dress it up. The contractors know that Southfield has a pretty tough landscaping requirement, and we probably pay extra for it, and oftentimes, some of them get it right, oftentimes we feel like they're still falling short. Weather has a lot to do with it, and in some neighborhoods, people have irrigation, that helps tremendously, but not everyone has irrigation, so when you've got new grass seed planted, you know, we need to get water on it, and we have a watering truck. Like, there's things that are, we feel like might be easier for us to take that responsibility back from the contractor, and hopefully then they know what they're getting into and exactly what their obligation is, and we don't have just landscape issues drag our contracts out for a couple of years, because that has happened on some of our projects. We'd like to take it back, and we feel like we can do a better job of, if they get it started with the right material, that we can get it to where we need it to be and what's acceptable for the city.
Then what you're saying is that we're no longer putting landscaping as part of the contract?
We are, but not, right now, the way it's set up, they really don't get paid until it is fully grown in. So we're going to work with the contractors to get some good topsoil down and get everything seeded, and then the city's kind of taking over the responsibility of doing the watering and ensuring that we're getting the adequate growth.
If I may,
Sure,
Mr.
sure.
President, I mean, the Public Works Group, we're prepared to move in on restoration. We are just as frustrated as council as this. We get these roads, and we're all done, and then we just can't get the grass restored. And we're at the mercy of these contractors, and there's a little bit. So the contract's being, as I understand it, is being designed that we could pull that piece of the pie out, go in and do the job ourselves. After after 2 seasons, and each season you only have a 4 to 6 week window to get this grass seed down, spring and fall, and then the next spring. We wanna close this stuff out and move on to the next area. The volume we're doing, and in discussing this with Larry Searles and the supervisors over in the group, we're mobilizing to have a restoration crew out there. Just, we're tired of being reliant on these, and we certainly don't plan on paying these guys to do something they're not doing.
Well, that's the bottom line for me too, because if it's in part of the contract and they're not doing it, and we're sending our own people out, we're paying double for it.
Well, when it was a performance-based spec for the landscaping, then you're paying a premium for that, because that contractor, they know they're gonna be on the hook for as long as it takes to get that full growth. And some of them are better at it than others in getting it, and they're somewhat beholden to what's going on with weather, so it's a bit of a risk for them. We probably have been paying a premium for that because we have high standards and they know that we're gonna hold them to that. So I think what you're gonna see on our bid contracts are the prices, the way we're bidding it now, come down quite a bit, and then ultimately, it's still gonna cost the same amount of money, but now it's gonna be city crews doing that final, making sure that it grows. So, if it's not raining, we wanna get water on it every day. So we think that's gonna be the best solution and best for the residents, better for us. It's tough with those complaints, and we have some control over it. The contractors come out, they're obligated to do it, but it's the timing of it that is frustrating.
Whatever, we don't have money to throw around.
Right.
And,
Understood.
we bonded for $99 million, but, every dollar we have counts because we're spending it, and the roads, we need every penny that we have in that to make our roads better. So that's the peripheral question to what I wanted to ask. And on this particular job, can you explain, bump into me a little bit better, because you said it was to narrow the road so that the pedestrians don't have so far to walk. Are you talking about Winchester, or are you talking about side streets, or are you talking about both?
This is all along Winchester. So there's several roads that come in and intersect with Winchester. Yes. And we have a lot of pedestrian ramps and crossings across that. As part of the traffic calming, the real traffic calming is just to it's almost like bringing those curb lines in a little bit closer. Of course, you still have two-way traffic, but it's just tightening it up in those locations. At those locations at intersections where we have pedestrian crossings, that's now a more narrow road for a pedestrian to cross. So the less amount of roadway that a pedestrian has to cross is an improvement for pedestrian safety. The driver for it, though, is really the traffic calming.
Okay, I'm still not quite sure. Does the curb along Winchester go along like that, and then when you get to the intersection, it curves out?
Yeah, the curbs come out. So those are the areas where an inlaid job like this that I talked about, most of the time the curbs are staying in place. We're just removing that pavement, putting it back. This area, some areas of the curb are staying in place where we're bringing these in. Those curbs get removed and get re-poured. And
So if I'm driving along in the curb lane, when I get to an intersection, I need to be careful because the curb kind of, and it's not dramatic, I presume, but enough that if I'm not careful.
So this was from our presentation, February of 2017, so it's a long time ago. So this is an intersection bump in where we just bring it in a little tighter. Adds a little more green belt between the sidewalk and the curb in front of some of these properties. And just to tighten up that intersection and get the cars to slow down. So that's happening at intersections, and then we've got some that are just mid-block where we have a long stretch with no intersecting street. Just bringing that in a little bit. Those are locations where people will not be able to park on the street where we have these chokers, but They're not everywhere, so there's still plenty of on-street parking.
Will there be no parking signs up there in this location?
If we need to, so, I don't like sign pollution, so if we have to put signs up, then we will. We are having a public meeting, in early May with the residents. We expect a good turnout. They're pretty active associations in there. So we'll talk about those type of items and use the homeowners associations to help spread the word as well.
Okay, I'm glad you said you don't like sign pollution, because there's a deaf child sign that's in that, right along Winchester, just west of Revere, I think it is. That's been there since I've been in Southfield. That kid ought to be grown up now. Would you take a look at that and see if, I don't know, you may have to ask around there,
Yeah,
is it still?
absolutely. We've got some contacts with the association president, so we'll reach out to them to see if they're aware of any need for that sign any longer.
Okay, and do you know if there are any lead pipes in this? Because the state is gonna start insisting on cities replacing lead laterals. And if we're gonna tear up the street, and there are lead pipes out there now, maybe now's the time to do it, rather than come back in another couple of years when the state starts cranking down on us and tearing the street back up again and doing it.
Right, so you're aware what the current law is and what we have been doing for many years is when we come across a lead service, that's where you see the lead. It's not really in the main line city-owned pipes, but it's in the services. We always replace that lead service up to the shut-off box, which is right near people's property line. And then the residents are given a written notification that they have a lead service, and if they're going to, if they so choose to replace it, blah, blah. It's basically just a notification, and it's left up to the property owners. That's a good point. We'll have to see exactly where it looks like the state is getting closer on that legislation. So at the time of our pre-construction meeting, if it's looking like that requirement is going to be to replace it all the way to the meter, which is inside the house, then we'll have to do a change order and include that. We don't have a lot of lead services in Southfield, so I'm not sure along in this neighborhood if we have record of any. Sometimes we are surprised and we'll run into one and two in a neighborhood that we thought we had none. So we do keep an eye out for it and address it as we need to.
Yeah, when we were at the Michigan Municipal League Legislative Conference, that was one of the subcommittees.
It's a very hot topic because you're getting onto people's private property, and there's some people who have taken it upon themselves in the past to pay for that upgrade to that service, that portion of the service line, which is their responsibility. And it's a little one of these like unfunded mandates that they're probably pulling down to us.
People were very angry. I read this
Okay?
Okay.
That's it.
All right, Ms. Morris.
Yeah, I was just curious, you mentioned how fast the drivers drive down Winchester, and I was wondering, how did you assess that? Did you put in one of those speed radar?
Yeah, there was a traffic study that was done and along Winchester, and what we found is 85th percentile in the worst locations of speed along Winchester, where drivers going 36 miles an hour. It is a 25-mile-an-hour road, and the violation rate of people speeding is 85%. So almost everyone is driving too fast on this road. And if that 85th percentile at 36 miles per hour, that means some people are driving even faster than that. And this is really not acceptable.
Are you putting in any speed bumps? That's a really long street.
No, no speed bumps. The narrowing is what we're using as the traffic calming.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. What is the life expectancy of this for Winchester?
This pavement inlay,
Right.
I would fully expect this to be a 20-year plus pavement repair. With the asphalt, when we start seeing some more serious distresses at the surface, And the next time we're here, it would be a more simple mill of a top layer and then a new layer of asphalt.
Any other questions? Okay. We'll just move on to the consent according to the council. Okay, thank you. Item number 5, authorization to apply Oakland County 2018 local road improvement matching fund pilot program.
Right, this one is also me. So Oakland County has their local road improvement matching fund pilot program. They call it LRIP. So the purpose of the program is to improve economic development within Oakland County. And Oakland County has put pretty modest funds toward this, but made this available to all the cities within Oakland County to help match some funds in areas that they feel that the road improvements would have a positive economic development impact. We were able to use 2016 and 2017 funds for the northbound northwestern service drive as part of this program. That was the service drive west of Telegraph Road over by Case and Lockdale. This 2018 application, our intent is to apply for a multi-year project plan and be able to use 2018 and 2019 funds for the reconstruction of Case and Lockdale. This does serve the same commercial community. It's kind of simplifying our application process, which is nice. And these are roads that are in very poor condition and are ready for replacement. We'll be seeing an award for the actual construction a little later this spring or early summer. And those roads are going to be reconstructed in asphalt and converted from 4-lane roads to 3-lane cross sections. So we'll have that continuous center left turn lane for this location. We're going to bid these two streets together, but the intent is to reconstruct Lockdale in 2018 and then reconstruct Case in 2019. Just looking for good prices, economy of scale. You get a contractor on board, they know they've got 2 years worth of work to do, and looking forward to getting some good bid prices on this project. It's about a $3 million investment just in construction costs. The 2018 LRIP funds is $172,588. Doesn't sound like very much for a $3 million project, but you're looking more at $340,000 if we are able to secure the 2 years of funding, and that starts to make a dent. That adds up.
Any questions, council? Mr. Mandelbaum.
So, with the 2019 project, which budget would that be on? Would it be on?
Which of our budget?
Yeah.
So all these roads are on our major road system, so it will come out of the major street fund by our road bond.
Would it be the 2018, 2019, or 2019?
So the intent is it'll be in this year's budget, but the intent is only to encumber the funds one road at a time, so we're not overly stressing our pot of
And
money.
it's feasible, one of these projects will very well straddle into the 18-19. Keep in mind, MDOT has a different fiscal year, and the county does too. So you've got, this can be a little tricky between fiscal years.
Okay.
And I did mean to mention the 2016 and 2017 LRIP funds. We are currently applying for our reimbursement for our 2016 funds. The 2017, as we were preparing for the 2018 application, completing that, I realized the county had not sent us the agreement for our 2017 funds. So you're probably going to see that. It'll seem a little backwards since we're bringing the 2018 authorization to apply, but you'll actually see the cost agreement for the 2018 funds in the next month.
Mr. Zoen.
I want to stress that, one, these are not gas tax or monies from the feds or the state. This is Oakland County saying we've got a surplus and we recognize we've got a road issue. Very few counties in the state are in this position. They're getting a tremendous leverage for what they're putting in. But we are fortunate to have these monies, and that they're coming out of they're not coming out of Act 51 monies or a special grant. It's actually county property taxes and their operating millage, which you don't see, you know, maybe Kent County might be doing something like this, but you don't see this in Wayne or Macomb or Oakland.
Okay.
Please.
Go ahead.
Just want to touch on 10 Mile for the council, Telegraph to the Beach, the road commission's project.
Right, they're actually, they're gonna be doing like a pavement rehab, pretty light pavement rehab, but on 10 Mile, west of Telegraph, all the way actually into Farmington Hills. I think it's going all the way to Orchard Lake. So they're doing several miles of that project. They're gonna be starting, the signs anticipating the construction have just gone up. We're hoping that they're gonna be done. I reached out to them when I saw their news release, because we've got 9 Mile coming up this year, and we're gonna have 9 Mile closed east of Telegraph, but still like in the, you know, right through Southfield. So they are confident that they can get their 9 Mile road mill and overlay completed before we close 9 Mile. You know, they'll get that completed on 10 Mile, so. We don't want people to have to, you know, zigzag up and down around the whole city, so I appreciate that they were working with us on that one, I raised that concern.
Has the road been reopened?
That was supposed to be a temporary closure for some emergency culvert repair, and I've not been over there. I'm assuming it's open. Someone else around this table may be able to tell me which one. So on Telegraph.
10 Mile.
West of.
Yeah, on 10 Mile west of Telegraph, there was an emergency culvert repair
It's
near
pretty
the
well,
Rouge
they still have
River.
barrels out there.
Yeah, they do, okay.
In
So
front of
they,
Kentucky Fried Chicken, on there, that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Cyber.
Any word from the county what they're going to do about 10 miles between Greenfield and Evergreen?
they don't have funding secured for that piece yet. So they do understand that that is our top priority road.
And
They,
clearly it failed on different sides, north side and south side, depending on whether you're between Evergreen and Southfield, it's south side, north side, Greenfield and Southfield, air cement.
yeah, those roads, that's very likely that ASR, that alkali silica reaction that they're seeing in all those pavement joints, similar to what we saw in southbound Greenfield between 8 and 9 Mile. Really the only thing for them to do is totally reconstruct, and that's a 5-lane road, so it's very expensive. So it's, you know, it's gonna take a little time. They looked like they were evaluating that for our last round of federal funding for 2021, and they have not secured the funding for 2021. So crossing fingers for 2022.
All right, Mr. Frazier.
I have one quick question. Is this money from the county, we spend it, and then they reimburse us, or do they give us the money and we spend it?
Reimbursement.
I thought so.
Take our time with the contract.
Yeah.
That's it? Capacity.
When is 12 Mile Road between Evergreen and Telegraph going to be done?
So between, I believe just between Evergreen and Lasser, the county they're committing their 2021 federal dollars to the reconstruction of that stretch of 12 Mile Road.
They're not going to make it.
Well,
I mean, you know,
yes.
I mean, seriously, it's dangerous. You have curbs, that little 12-inch next to the street where the drain is. Those things there's holes there. Some of the drains, I was telling Larry, that they've got some cones up, and if a car goes in there, you know, it's gonna disappear. I mean, it's that big holes, and they have guys that go down there, keep putting that asphalt down, but the asphalt goes to the side, and now you got all that residue or sand and asphalt all against the curb. So you can't even drive in the right lane anymore. I mean, the road is actually just disintegrated. You're really driving on a gravel road, and that thing just cannot be that way. And I don't know what can be done about it, but, you know, they did between Southfield and Evergreen, but the part that really needs it is all the way to Telegraph. It's just falling apart, especially where the bridge is. It's west of Lasher Road. You go down that little valley there where Bell Road is, you know, they put in concrete where they put the bridge in, and they could have gone 3 more feet and filled a hole, and they didn't. The guy came around this last week and put more asphalt in the hole. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's, I mean, I know that, I don't think we're getting our share of county money down here, but I really think.
Well,
Some of the people that went out to the farms to stay out there and fix our roads here.
yeah, I mean, Oakland County Road Commission, you know, who has jurisdiction over all the county roads, they are in a tight spot like the rest of the road agencies. The thing that they don't have is the ability, like we did, to pass our road bond. So they've got a large network. I don't envy their position. They understand what our priorities are of county roads within the city of Southfield. But then they have their own rating and priority system based on pavement condition and accidents, and very strongly driven by the traffic counts, which is why that piece of 12-mile for them took priority over the 10-mile piece, because they have much higher traffic counts on 12 miles. So they're fixing that road, and it's gonna have a positive impact on more motorists.
And they'll be closing I-696 so from Drake to 75, and these people are gonna be right on 12-mile road. That's where they were before I-696 was, you know, and 10 mile.
All right, seeing no additional questions, council in agreement with this item, we'll move on to the consent agenda for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 6, approval of request for waiver on the Public Act 202.
Good evening, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk to you about Public Act 202 of 2017 and the actions the city is expecting to take in this regard. This matter is related to the state of Michigan looking at municipalities and local governments' pension and retiree health care liabilities, and how much funding level they have and what kind of resources they have to address those liabilities. So this matter came up about 1.5 years ago. The state decided at that point in time to appoint a blue ribbon commission to study the program and study the issue and kind of make recommendations. And out of that came what was codified as PA 202, which was passed in December. What they want to do is they want to make sure that the local governments are aware of the numbers related to these liabilities, that there's an action plan, that they're planning to do something about these liabilities, and that they don't just sit on the books or end up in a situation where they're absorbing all the city funding. The city of Southfield, as you know, we've been notifying you of our pension situation and our retiree health care situation for some time. Our pension plans, both police and fire, and the CSRS pension plan are in pretty good shape. They're in the mid-70s in terms of their funding level, and we make our full annual required contribution as determined by the actuaries, and there's no question as far as the state goes with respect to our pension liabilities. The retiree health care liabilities, frankly, is a different story, and those liabilities, despite many actions of the city, still continue to grow and do definitely need some more attention, and will be getting more attention. According to the state law that was passed, the first step that they wanted was a disclosure of the assets and the liabilities for both pension and retiree health care, which we had to submit in January, which we did. And at that point, the pension liabilities were fell in line with their guidelines. Those were okay. The retiree health care came up under their guidelines, and they have certain cutoff levels. as underfunded. And frankly, I don't know that anybody in this room would agree, disagree that that there's a long way to go in terms of funding those retiree healthcare liabilities. But as I said, and as council's aware, we've done many, many things over the years. We've changed the base plan, we've closed the plan to new members, we established a Section 115 trust to pre-fund for these liabilities. We have over $70 million in the trust, which is $70 million more than a lot of other communities. So we definitely are moving along the way. After reporting what our liabilities are and getting this notification that we are considered underfunded, the next step from the state is they are supposed to be creating a municipal stability board of individuals who will make recommendations to help cities create a corrective action plan. We think we've been doing quite a few things on our own, and an intermediate step there is submission of a request for a waiver. To let the state know we are taking actions. We have been taking actions for some time. We're really very close to their cutoff levels. We needed to be spending no more than 12% of our revenues on our required contributions, and we're calculated out as 12.4% in the last go around. So we think that it's really makes sense for us to submit the waiver and continue on the road that we have been to address these liabilities on our own, rather than have someone from the state come in and give us their view of the world. So the request for the waiver is actually due today. So as I said, I'm glad I'm on the agenda today. And hopefully, if there's consensus of council to allow us to submit for the waiver, we will do that after the consent program tonight.
Ms. Morris.
I got two questions. One, I think we have to go to Fred. Fred, what was the revenue sharing that we received for 2017?
For 2017, I would have to pull the exact number. I can tell you, revenue sharing though is $3 million less than its peak. If in between meetings, I'll run up and get that number. But revenue sharing, we peaked about 10 years ago, and it's $3 million less.
Yeah, you can get that number from me, that'd be great. And then the next question was, on the Municipal Stability Board, do we know who is going to make that up?
There's three individuals that are being appointed. Mr. Moss was in the room. I don't know if he has any more insight as to who's actually going to be on the Municipal Stability Board. I think Treasury is appointing those
Yeah, I'm not sure.
members. I know there's three members of different expertise. I think, I'm not sure if they're legislators. I know one was being proposed by the Michigan Association of Public Employee Retirement Systems, somebody on their board who has expertise in public pension funding.
Akasi, does it, Ms. Morris?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Akasi.
Fred, wait, proposal A, that was based on a formula way back when. In Southfield, because of its development, was a certain formula. I think there was 2 of us who were in that class. What happens with all the new growth that our other communities are into? Why aren't we getting out of it? Is there a way to get out of proposal A?
Well, let me.
Let me put it that way.
Right now in our tax base.
Oh, it's based on a formula.
In December 31st, 2008, the city's tax base was about 3.6 billion. And you actually, it's the first time residential values exceeded commercial. Today, the budget is being built on it's being built on 2.25 billion. So we've lost roughly 40%. Now, values have come back. We have over 400 million because of Proposal A that we're not capturing. And in my cover letter on the budget, when you folks see that end of April, May, you'll see I put the value on that, how much we're losing because of Proposal A. You have, in essence, 3 areas that are really costing the city. Revenue sharing from your peak, Proposal A, your court revenues through our police department are 50% of what they were 5 years ago. And Those all
And
combined.
Headley, I just don't want to.
Pardon?
Headley.
Well, Headley, you know, as you grow, we have a Headley rollback, so that creates that disparity between two identical homes. One home paying $6,000, the other home maybe only paying $3,000, and Headley rolls that millage rate back. And what we did in May 2010, we did a Headley rollback of the 4 mills. I will tell you, this legislation that was passed was much better than the original legislation. The original legislation was at 30% and actually had language that would begin pulling the triggers for an emergency financial manager. And I have publicly thanked both the police and fire unions. I think if they used the clout that they used in December to rectify this, things like revenue sharing and Proposal A could be fixed. And they really need to help with that fight. It's MML and the other groups are leading that battle. But December came down to a whole lot of cities would have been in trouble. As Ms. Siskin has indicated, we were in much better shape than most on our retiree health care, but we're not anywhere near where we need to be. I have said ad nausea, our fringe benefit rate 2008 was about 25 cents per employee. This current budget, 82 cents for every dollar of payroll. Another 57 cents in that 10-year period is being spent to keep the same level of fringe benefits for our employees. It puts us under tremendous pressure because that's not a raise the employee is seeing in their check, it's on the backside, what it takes to keep all this going.
Any additional questions? Let me put something in perspective. When I chaired the finance committee, I was very interested in this OPEB. So I've done some research on it, but in 2015, Los Angeles County had a $25 billion OPEB liability. The city of New York has a $95 billion OPEB liability. So it's a train that's coming down the track. And this is, I kind of like this thing from the state relatively looking at how we can, address it come down the road because it is a financial, let's say, catastrophe that's going to happen down the road. So if no other questions, this item will move to the consent agenda. And I will now, if there's nothing else, we will recess and reestablish in the chamber.
I think there were 3 cities. I think there were 3 cities. I think Southfield, Colbert, on
For the pledge of allegiance, thank you.
I think I'll sit back in with you guys. I don't need to see.
Before we get started, I would like Officer Pensy. There's Officer Pensy in the house.
Went to the restroom with the chair.
Well, with that, I will now recognize Mr. Fakasi for a moment to dedication him.
Can we have a moment of silence, please? Thank you. Mr. Chairman, why the moment of silence is because a very, very important young man who the quality of life in Southfield has passed away, and it is Dr. Udesky with Providence Hospital. Give you a little bit of story, and I'll take just a few minutes, because it's very important that when Providence Hospital was here, they opened up an emergency wing, and they leased it out to Dr. Ritter and Dr. Udesky. And at that time, back in 68, 69, 70, 72, we had a Board of Health to the city of Southfield. That was part of our charter until Oakland County took over the health department. And during that period of time, we heard about something that was happening down in Florida, wherein people were using the fire department for rescue. And we sent a fireman there from Marcel Charette to see what it was all about. And when he came back, he said it was very interesting. And he and Dr. Wright, who was on the Board of Health, Southfield Board of Health, Dr. Ritter and Dr. Badesky got together and said, you know, they've got something called emergency help in the home. And we have got to look at it really carefully and see if we want to do that in Southfield. So that was really the beginning of our life support. And so we were the first ones in the United States to have the life support that we have today. And the first month that they went into business, and how it really worked was that 3 firemen went into a panel Ford truck that said life support and went to a home where they were called, and instead of having just oxygen and an ambulance, they stabilized the person right there, got them ready to go to the hospital, and took them to the hospital in emergency. In the first month, we saved 9 lives a month. And today, I think the number is up to date. I was talking to Myra, I think I've heard, we have about 14,000 runs today. And Dr. Radesky was one of those that really pushed it forward. And not only that, it helped going to the state and federal government to get a Good Samaritan Act passed, where the fire department could go into a home and assist in stabilizing a patient and getting them to the hospital. The fire department under Chief Foote started it. They were trained by nurses that went to the fire stations, and they became what we know today as emergency management, emergency help. And so I just wanted to bring that forward because, you know, I just can imagine, because of that program, how many lives in Southfield were saved. And not only that, but people who traverse through our community, people who work in our community, and people who live in our community. And so he died at a young age of 78 years old. And so he's going to be buried tomorrow. And I just thought that we understand how life support really came about in the city of Southfield and in the United States. It started here in Southfield. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. As I started off earlier, we met with the chief of police last week relative to some issues that we thought we were having here in the city building and also this chamber. And I would just announce that we have Officer Kopinski tonight with us, and you can stay seated back there, sir. So in the future, we will be recognizing our officers who are present with us. With that, the next item on the agenda would be, I would like to recognize our wonderful state representative, Jeremy Moss, for a legislative update.
Thank you, Council President, Council, and Mayor, Madam Clerk, and Administration. I just wanted to provide an opportunity on some of the items that we've been working on in Lansing on behalf of the citizens of Southfield and the things that are going on and how it impacts us back home. I am in my second term serving this district and am the House Democratic Whip, which puts me in the leadership team. And House Democrats earlier this year unveiled our 2018 legislative priorities for the remainder of this year, and we have introduced several bills around our legislative priorities that I'd like to talk about just briefly and how it will impact the Southfield resident who's watching in the audience and living in our community. The 4 major initiatives that we are launching this year are, number 1, building an economy that works for everyone. That includes increased training for workers to learn 21st century skills that they need for the good paying jobs that they want. Putting Michigan workers and companies first supporting these small neighborhood businesses that fuel our local economies, and fighting for a better deal on taxes that ensures that everyone pays their fair share. The second major initiative that we're pushing forward is making healthcare affordable. That's supporting families by tackling skyrocketing prescription drug costs. And we actually launched an initiative right here in Southfield, the mayor was present, to create a consumer protection board within the Department of the Attorney General to investigate any price spikes of prescription drug costs and force those drug companies to actually justify those costs. And if they don't have a justification, they pay a penalty every single day that they don't report to the state. Another initiative about the affordable health care is protecting seniors by ensuring they're able to retire with dignity and protecting the Healthy Michigan program, which is the Medicaid expansion program here in Michigan. Our third major initiative is supporting student success, providing quality education through the support of great educators, reining in classroom sizes, and giving students the freedom to choose the path in life that they like by offering community college promise to all Michigan residents. And then lastly, I think the most prominent that I hear in my office that you probably hear in your capacity in the city level is building quality infrastructure. That includes fixing our local roads while creating good paying jobs to do so, expanding and strengthening broadband access for families in every corner of the state, and holding corporations that pollute our natural resources accountable. And we certainly know something about that in Southfield, having just dealt with the oil drilling controversy at the corner of 9 Mile and Evergreen. So I wanted to talk really very briefly at kind of an overview of some of the things that I've been working on to fit into those 4 policy buckets that we've identified. First and foremost, roads. When I was on the city council, we presented a plan to the Southfield voter that would put $99 million into our local roads over the next successive 11 years. That was a ballot initiative in November of 2014. It passed with an overwhelming amount of support from the Southfield residents, and road construction began November of 2014. And Southfield, as we all know, leads the communities in Oakland County in local road construction. A lot of that has to do with that ballot initiative that the voters supported. A lot of it certainly has to do with the leadership of the council and mayor for making sure that those taxpayer dollars are used wisely. Then they head up to Lansing, and it's just like night and day. The amount of disinvestment the state leadership puts into roads throughout the state. The legislature passed a roads plan in October of 2015 that was mostly based on cuts, some $800 million in cuts to get to $1.2 billion of investment. You can't cut your way to the prosperity that we need and to the money that we need in local roads because you're creating a pothole elsewhere, either in the state budget or elsewhere in the services that we rely upon. So the problem is that we haven't put enough money into roads. And I've been working steadfast to reverse that. We have a rainy day fund in the state of Michigan that's pretty healthy right now. It's raining in Michigan. And we need to make sure that we actually adequately support local communities that are responsible with taxpayer dollars in fixing roads so that they can continue to do so. And I'm committed to that and have been committed to that. We just put an additional $175 million into our budget from last year as a boost to road funding. That's peanuts, in the grand scheme of things. We asked to boost that by a $75 million boost, and the majority declined to increase that $175 million. It's frustrating to me driving over the same pothole every day in our community as it is to any of our residents here. So I'm committed to adequate funding. And that's a policy priority that we're working on. Another policy priority is lowering our auto insurance rates here in Michigan. We have seen just an abuse from the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association in continuing to jack up our rates year after year. So we introduced a plan called the Fair and Affordable Plan. You can go to fairandaffordable.com to review it. It talks about bringing fairness to insurance rates by prohibiting non-driving factors like credit score, gender, occupation, and education level from being used to determine auto insurance rates, bringing transparency to the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association by making sure that they independently and publicly verify the appropriateness of its assessments, and so that they're subjected to the Freedom of Information Act and the Open Records Act, and cracking down on fraud, both on the end of claimants, providers, and insurance companies who knowingly deny legitimate claims. So in terms of infrastructure, I think that's all something that we're all hearing about from our constituents because we all suffer through the same problems as anybody else in this community suffers from. The second area, the education area, at one point, as we know, 2/3 of Oakland County's charter schools were in the city of Southfield. So this council, this community has seen everything from all ends in managing the charter schools in our community. We're just trying to bring some parity to the charter schools in our community and to our traditional public schools. So I have pushed and pushed and pushed so that our charter schools are held to the same transparency as they spend our tax dollars that our public school boards are held to. Right now, charter schools essentially can farm out all of their financial oversight to education management organizations, and those education management organizations aren't subjected to the Freedom of Information Act. Where this is a problem happened right here in Southfield with Taylor International Academy last school year, closing its doors because they ran out of money about 3 weeks before the school year ended. And it put Southfield families that attended that schools in a really bad situation. And we have no access. I still don't have any access to figure out where was the financial mismanagement because they're not subjected to any state audits, any public viewing of those financial forms. So we introduced the School Fact Act. FACT, we put as an acronym for freedom, accountability, choice, and transparency to remedy that and bring some accountability to the charters in our community and throughout the state. And so those bills that we introduced would manage some of those problems that we've seen in this community. And when I was on council, there were charter schools opening up in neighborhoods, disrupting neighborhood cohesion, going on neighborhood roads that couldn't even handle the capacity of pickup and drop off. And we had our city attorney talk about everything that we could do, and on the local level, the options are limited. And so we're trying to reverse that on the state level to at least shine a light on how these charter schools operate so we can have a better accountability on where our taxpayer dollars go and empower local stakeholders to make sure that those charter schools aren't bad actors in our community. And then the last thing, probably that has been a personal project of mine, and I want to recognize Jason Hoskins, who's my legislative director, who has been really on top of helping us manage through this, is price gouging. When I was growing up, it didn't really sleet ice on April 15th. So the climate is changing, and with that, we're seeing more extreme weather events in our community. And last year, our community suffered through a historic windstorm, a power outage, that left a lot of Southfield families without power in those cold nights in early March. And some of them had to seek shelter in emergency places, including the motels in our district. And I got a call from our district that one of those motels that traditionally would charge $59 a night was charging $400 a night during that snowstorm, that windstorm that took out the power of a lot of Southfield residents and taking advantage of human misery. And so we set forth to research what can we do to prevent bad actors in our own community from price gouging Southfield residents in need. 30 other states have a price gouging law that deals with specifically price gouging during an emergency declaration. We're not one of those 30 states. So we've taken best practices from those particular states around the country and have introduced, I sponsored House Bills 5714 and 5715 that would ban gouging on lodging, gas, food, medicine, and other essential items during a period after which an emergency declaration is called. And that could be an act of terrorism, an act of war, or an act of nature. And so these bills would catch us up to the 30 other communities that protect consumers by making sure that the goods or services, including lodging, would not exceed the highest price during the 180-day period preceding the declaration of emergency. This is based off of something that happened in our community, in our district, based off of a phone call after a windstorm that came into my office. So we're working hard to make sure that we have bipartisan support for this, And it's a best practice that we've seen across the country. We want to make sure that we're protecting the Southfield consumer so that they're not subjected to price gouging. We have a broad price gouging law that does not specifically deal with emergency declarations. So I want to commend Jason for all this research on this, and the Southfield residents who reached out to our office so that we can actually solve some problems that are happening back home. So that's my legislative update. I hope I was as short as the mayor asked me to be. I'll take any questions in my capacity as state representative for our community.
Any council have any questions?
Thank you for your report, also as usual.
Thank you.
Mr. Frazier.
Thank you so much for the update. Of the items that you talked about, are they mostly bipartisan or?
So in specific, this fair and affordable package has 41 co-sponsors on it, Republicans and Democrats. It's about a 10 to 13 bill package that we are offering as a solution to finally lower our auto insurance rates here in the state of Michigan, which are extraordinarily high, some of the highest in the country. So that is a bipartisan effort. And we're working in the School Fact Act. We tried as hard as we could to reach out to the other side of the aisle. We have a lot of ideological differences with those who support a DeVos agenda in Lansing, and this would butt up against the DeVos agenda. And so it's tough in the atmosphere that we're in now to find bipartisan support to hold charter schools accountable.
And the question about the auto insurance, because Michigan is the only state that has catastrophic insurance, do you expect pushback from the insurance companies? Because they've been trying to get rid of it for a long time.
Yeah, we've seen a lot. We've already experienced a lot of pushback from them. But my priorities lie with accident victims, and then everything else falls from there. And I think that when victims are in an accident, which doesn't discriminate, there's no pre-existing condition. It could, God forbid, happen to any one of us. We want to make sure that our medical care is taken care of. The biggest issue that we've seen is our bad practices, including discriminatory practices and like redlining, where certain zip codes are targeted to have increased rates based on non-driving factors. So that's probably been at the heart of our legislation, and eliminate those non-driving factors that lead to discrimination in communities like Southfield that keep our insurance rates higher. Just because we are closer to the urban core than other communities. It should be your insurance that you pay should be based on your driving record primarily, and so that's at the core of our legislation. And Councilman, we have seen a lot of pushback from the insurance industry on it.
The last thing is, this year I'm the chairperson of the legislative subcommittee, so whatever we can do to help keep us involved.
Yeah, you got it. That's a commitment I definitely make. I've enjoyed a very good working relationship with each of the 7 of you and the mayor and our new clerk. So I'll continue to partner with you and continue to keep you informed as we do for my office. We will email you on a weekly basis as we continue to do as there's legislation that comes out of Lansing and how it impacts us here back home in Southfield.
Thank you.
Mr. Moss, with respect to one of your items that deal with infrastructure, is there bipartisan support for improving the infrastructure in Michigan? Because Michigan is noted to having the worst infrastructure in the Great Lakes region. And we had a report a couple months ago about spending per capita. Michigan was dead last in the state Great Lakes. The states is supposed to spending on infrastructure. So have you gotten bipartisan support, or is there pushback?
It's very difficult to address this issue in Lansing when we have a majority party that many of whom signed a no tax pledge. That's basically a no governance pledge. That is we are quitting to find solutions for the Michigan resident. From my experience as a councilman and as a state representative, people have told me, sure, that my taxes are too high, but more than that, I hear my tax dollars don't work for me. And so there's been a trust in this community between the taxpayer and our local unit of government, especially in that that November 2014 ballot initiative that we as a community, when I was on council, asked our community to support the ballot initiative. And the community trusted us to spend those tax dollars. And as a result, we put, what, $97 million in our roads over the last 3 years, with another 30-something million coming this year. That's road construction that this community has seen, and still it's not enough. And so anyone who I serve with that says, well, it's complicated, it's a problem, our funding formula, it's tough. No, we need more money. And what are we going to do as legislators to figure out how to put more money into our roads? And the second you sign a no tax pledge, you've given up. It's not that I want to tax anybody, but we're already paying taxes in the terms of fixing our cars. The average Michigan resident is paying hundreds of dollars at the auto shop. And so I would like to cut that off and figure out how can we actually spend money in infrastructure that lasts rather than, the new windshield or the new tire or the new rim. And so I want to take the credibility that I guess I've earned in Southfield in spending city dollars wisely and say, trust me to spend those state tax dollars wisely. Because right now, we're not spending them at all. And as a result, we have infrastructure that's crumbling beneath us, and it's been tough to find bipartisan partners who are serious about this issue.
The mayor, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I kid Jeremy about his reports, but he's done a great job of being very visible as state representative. And important fact, not only does he show up here, but he shows up to the other communities he serves. I'm also pleased to know that you've listened to my remarks about road construction. It's very true. 97 million the last 3 years, 30.35 million this year, and we will still have potholes. Earlier this evening, we were talking about the county roads and the condition of those in Southfield, and I have to write in on this again, but 8 mile, 10 mile, 12 mile, Greenfield, Southfield, Washer, Telegraph are not our roads, and yet we have to contribute to them, and that's part of the problem. They're delegated to the Oakland County Road Commission to maintain, and the road Commission has the same problem as well, because money is ultimately coming from the state. Thank you.
Mr. Moss, I appreciate the very good report, and we encourage that you in Lansing.
Yeah, thank you. And if any of the constituents want to reach out to me in my capacity as state rep, you can call my office. You can visit my state website, which is moss.housedems.com. That's the state website. My office line is 517-373-1788. My email is jeremymoss@house.mi.gov. We're here to work for the neighbors here in Southfield.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
The next item on the agenda will be appointments. We have several. I think the first one up is the appointment of the magistrate and Judge Johnson.
Thank you, Council President, to members of our council, the mayor, the clerk, as well as city administration. Good evening. It's really my pleasure to be here on this awesome occasion to request on behalf of the judges of the 46th District Court, along with my court administrator, Ms. Relash Shalai, we're here to request the approval of our appointment of Ms. Tiffany McEvans-Dalla as one of our new magistrates for the 46th District Court. As you know, but perhaps many of our residents don't know, that the law, which is Michigan Compiled Law 600.8501, does require certain minimal things to occur in order for a magistrate to serve. First of all, the magistrate has to be a registered elector of the district. And we have certainly qualified Ms. McEvans-Dalla, and she passes that test in flying colors, as she has lived in our district for about 45 years and has been a registered voter ever since she's been able to do so. And the other requirement that we have to fulfill is that we have to come before you as the governing body of our district control unit that contains more than 50% of the population of the district. And when we say district, that is the district of our court, as we are a third-class district court. And even though our court covers the communities and we have jurisdiction over cases from Southfield, Lathrop Village, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, Franklin, and Southfield Township, excuse me, you are the major point of our governing body, and so therefore we have to appear before you to get this approval. And I'm so honored to be able to do so. A lot of times people always ask, what is a magistrate? What does a magistrate do? What they don't realize is that the duties of a magistrate are pretty much set forth in a statute as well, and that's Michigan Compiled Law 600.8511. And it gives a broad variety of duties that a magistrate can be assigned to perform. It's a very serious responsibility that affects really the total administration of justice in our communities. So they can take on a lot of the work that the judges might otherwise do. So you can understand why it's so important to go through a search process to find the person that has all of the proper qualities that would be necessary to perform this job and to really give administration of justice at the highest supreme level for our citizens. The statute really allows many things to be done. I sign an administrative order, and the judges here, we decide what we want our magistrates to do. So there are a number of duties that she will be performing. She can perform arraignments and sentencings upon guilty pleas and no contest pleas for many misdemeanors that are designated by the statute that do not exceed 90 days in jail, a fine, or both. She also can arraign and sentence upon pleas of guilty or no contest for any violations of the Michigan Motor Vehicle Code. She can also, the maximum possible permissible punishment does not exceed 93 days in jail or fine or both. Then she can, except for certain violations of that motor vehicle code, also deal with those cases as well. And she can arraign defendants on any type of motor vehicle code and set bond. She'll also issue search warrants under general authority, and under certain conditions, she can also issue warrants for the arrest of persons. She will be fixing bail as well as accepting bond in all criminal cases. She will hear and preside over civil infraction admissions, as well as she will be able to perform other duties such as marriages and hear small claims cases in the small claims division of the court, which is very important because many of our residents appear in small claims, they don't have lawyers, and they're depending upon a fair and just resolution of their case, which they can feel comfortable with that justice has been done. Now, we conducted a significant search. We posted the position, and we looked at a number of different candidates, and we had very, very fine candidates, so we were in a great position because it was really a tough decision to make. But Ms. McEvans-Dalla really came shining through as the final candidate. She comes to us with a wide variety of experience in both civil and criminal law and even probate law. And she started out with a great educational background as well. She's a graduate of Tennessee State University with a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice. She also is a graduate with a Juris Doctorate degree of the Thomas and Cooley Law School. While she was in law school, she really excelled and performed at the highest level. She was on the dean's list. She was a part of the invitational mock trial competition, and she was a semifinalist in that. She received a certificate of merit in the trial workshop and was part of the national mock trial competition as well, in which she was a semifinalist. So right early on, she really set the tone of the type of lawyer that she was going to be, and she strives for perfection. So after she graduated from law school, she became a teacher here in the Southfield public school system from 2000 to 2001. She also has a wide variety of legal experience after that. She clerked at a local firm and did wills and estate for clients, did civil and criminal and probate matters. She left that employ in 2005 and went to the Misdemeanor Defenders Association, where she obviously worked on criminal matters in the misdemeanor realm. She also then worked at another law firm as an associate before she hung out her own shingle to open up Tiffany M. McEvans and Associates PLLC. And I've known Ms. McEvans since about 2007, and she's practiced before all of the judges in our court. So I know firsthand how prepared she is and the type of lawyer that she really is. And she gives 100% of her all when she represents her clients. Her private practice constitutes representation in misdemeanor and felony matters, as well as traffic violations. She does civil cases such as breach of contract, garnishment, and negligence matters. She has done various business transactional filings for clients, such as, IRS and state corporation filings. She works in the family law area as well. And of course, she does probate and divorce cases and child custody matters as well. She is a managing partner of her firm, so therefore she has a lot of administrative experience as well. On top of all of that, she is an adjunct professor at the Thomas M. Cooley Law School, teaching fundamental trial skills to law students in an interactive learning environment. So I must say, when you're looking for a candidate that has worked in just about every area that the district court covers, as well as other legal areas, Ms. McEvans was certainly our choice. And so, having said all of that, I think she's well qualified statutorily, as well as in her educational background and in her experience to serve as a district court magistrate. And I can tell you one of the most important factors that we feel is that the magistrate have the type of demeanor that is necessary to maintain the cool and calm and collectiveness while adjudicating cases, because sometimes our constituents are upset. And the court really has to set the tone for the proceeding. And we feel that she also has that background and that experience, as well as that kind of demeanor, that I think will do us very proud to have her adjudicating these serious cases on our behalf. So if you don't have any questions of me, you might have a few from Ms. McEvans-Dollar, but we're certainly asking you for your approval of her appointment as magistrate. Thank you.
We will take this as a standalone. Are there any questions, counsel?
I do. As a magistrate, will she have to give up her adjunct professorship or her business?
No, she will not have to give up either. She can work, and our magistrates frequently have in the past worked in their own legal practices. The only stipulation is that they cannot appear in our court before us on any matters that relate to anything out of this 46th District Court. So she will not be practicing in our court, but she can maintain as large a practice as she would like, as long as there's no conflicts.
Okay, thank you.
I will entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move we approve the appointment of Ms. Tiffany Evans-Dowd as magistrate.
Support. It was moved by Mr. Cruz, supported by Mr. Frazier, that we approve Mrs. Dallas as the magistrate for the 46th District Court. All
Thank
in
you so
favor?
much.
Aye. Opposed? Approved.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ms. Dowd, we typically have the new appointees and the reappointments come out and shake our hand. No, she's already been sworn in, correct? Yeah, the judge already been sworn in.
No. Well, let me say this. One of the stipulations is I could not swear her in until you all approved her. So she will be getting sworn in tomorrow so that she can begin her studies. She'll have to get a package of information from the State Court Administrative Office, do a ride along with our police officers, and otherwise come up to speed so that she can serve. So she'll be in a training room.
Okay, that was my understanding. Thank you.
Congratulations. Where's your baby go? Come on up. Come
Thanks, thank you. All right, we have additional appointments. I think the bulk of these appointments are council appointments. And so Mr. Mandelbaum will be handling those.
Good evening. Councilman Frazier, Councilman Morris, and I recently met and interviewed several applicants for different boards and commissions, and I've seen several already here. If you were here when I call you up, please come up to the podium. We have the board of review. We have the reappointment of Willie Davis. The common questions are also what do boards and commissions do. I'm going to give a quick one sentence synopsis. But the board of review is meets a few times a year, and they hear appeals from people on their tax assessments. We have the Building Authority Commission with the appointment of Demario Brown. The Building Authority has oversight over a lot of the city projects that we do, which include the beach roads renovation and some other things around some facility improvements. We have the Commission on Senior Adults. We have the appointment of Sarah Pavo, the appointment of Dr. Beatrice Thomas, and the appointment of David Walker. The Commission on Senior Adults, as many of you know, deals with issues regarding seniors. They're currently working on a project to make it with ARP, to have a senior-friendly community. We have the Total Living Commission. We have the reappointment of Kyra Harris, the reappointment of Sabina Heller, and the reappointment of Deborah Medley. Total Living Commission deals with quality of life issues within the city. And we also have the Veterans Commission with the appointment of Danny Craig. And the Veterans Commission deals with veteran affairs and helps with other veteran-related issues, such as housing, jobs, different programming as well. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. Frazier.
I move that we approve the appointment and reappointments of the individuals that Mr. Mandelbaum has just recited.
Support. It's been moved by Mr. Frazier, supported by Mr. Cruz, that we approve the appointments and reappointments as stated by Mr. Mandelbaum. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. You are now appointed to your respective position after being sworn in.
So we got a big group today, so when I say the word of, we can say your respective commission, okay? So everybody just raise their hand. I solemnly swear I support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and the Charter of the City of Southfield, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of according to the best of my ability. So just follow me over here. See you later. So you have anybody who wanna drive next to you?
Okay, to keep the meeting going, we will now, the meeting will continue, and we would like to order quiet. The consent agenda items for tonight are items. Can we do the minutes? Oh. Well, we gotta wait on the clerk. Our clerk is, you read medical? Our clerk is back in the chair. We have minutes. Can I get a motion to approve and disapprove?
Mr. President,
Mr.
I move that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of March 19, 2018, and the regular meeting of March 26, 2018.
Support. It was moved by Mr. Frazier, supported by Ms. Taylor, that we approve the minutes of March 19th and the regular minutes of March 26th. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved as presented. We will now go into the consent agenda. The first, let me announce too that for our audience, please go to the clerk's site. There's a lot of detail in all these minutes. And I would just give some highlights and where I can give fiscal impact. So this is pretty much just to give you an overview. But please go to the clerk's site and look under the council minutes, meeting agenda. And you're going to see all the details that are there. Consent agenda item for fiscal year 2017, 2018, 2022, 2023 capital improvement plan approval. The capital improvement plan is authorized by the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, PA 33 of 2008, as amended, and is required by the Redevelopment Ready Commission, by the Redevelopment Ready Committee's certification by Michigan Economic Development Corporation. One of the most important purposes of the planning is to anticipate the needs of a community for future public facility improvement and to provide a stable base from which to work to achieve these needs. This is a function of the capital improvement plan, which can help the city of Southfield development and implementing a long-range policy for physical development. It is recommended by the planning department that we approve this consent agenda item tonight. Consent agenda item B, the approving a parking license agreement with Providence Hospital. Providence Hospital has requested the right to temporarily use approximately 2.7 acres of vacant Northfield parking lot for purpose of providing additional parking capacity for the hospital operation. The fiscal impact of this will be the license agreement will generate $1,000 per month in revenue to the city, which is equivalent to $12,000 for the entire year. And this is an agreement with our partnership that we have with Providence and the redevelopment of Northland. Consent agenda item C, receipt of bid for section 15, Evergreen Trail Water Main and Paving Improvement. Our purchasing department received 5 acceptable bids from contractors pre-qualified through the city request for contractor qualifications process. The proposed project will take in the north half of Evergreen Trail subdivision and the 4 mile of Winchester Street. Work includes water main replacement on all streets, asphalt road reconstruction on Berkshire, concrete patching on remaining subdivision streets, and ADDA ramp upgrades. The fiscal impact of this particular project is the acceptable low bid of $3,705,633.51 was submitted by Palmar Enterprises, that's P-A-M-A-R Enterprises of New Haven, Michigan. The total cost of the project, including engineering, inspection, testing, and contingencies, will be $4,796,196, and funds are provided by the Road Bond Construction Fund. Consent agenda item D, approval of assignment of industrial facilities exemption certificate and agreement with Autoliv ASP Incorporated. On September 25, 2017, Southfield City Council approved a request for Autoliv ASP Incorporated to receive a real property tax exemption as provided by under Michigan Public Act 198 as amended to facilitate construction of their new headquarters. Autoliv has now requested the city to approve an assignment of the industrial facility exemption certificate and agreement to Veoneer based on Autoliv's recent separation of its business operation into 2 independent publicly traded companies as follows. Veoneer, that is V-E-O-N-E-E-R, and also Autoliv Incorporated. All terms and conditions of the license agreement will remain in effect and will become the obligation of Veoneer following the assignment. Consent agenda item E, the resolution designating a street administrator to represent the city of Southfield in transaction with the Michigan Department of Transportation. State law requires that we designate a street administrator to handle transactions between the city and the Michigan Department of Transportation. It is recommended that this resolution designated Ms. Lee Schultz as the City of Southfield Street Administrator and is provided to the City Council for consideration. Lee Schultz is our city engineer. Consent agenda item F, approve an interagency agreement with the Alliance of Rouge Communities Great Lakes Restoration Initiative grant, restoring tree canopy in the Rouge River AOC. The Department of Public Works is seeking approval for the City of Southfield to enter into an interagency agreement with the Alliance of Rouge Communications to benefit from a tree planting grant in the Rouge River watershed. The fiscal impact of this particular project is The Alliance for Rouge Communities grant totals $100,000 for the entire watershed. Trees purchased with these funds will be distributed to Wayne County and 19 communities within the Rouge River watershed. The Southfield portion of the grant is 85 trees. The city of Southfield will be responsible for planting all trees as local match for the grant within the fiscal year 2017-2018 and 2018-2019. A total of $10,625 will be awarded for 85 trees at $100 per tree, $125 per tree. Consent agenda item G, the West Nile Prevention Funding Assistance. Background, the West Nile virus is a mosquito-borne virus that can cause a wide range of illnesses from the mild flu-like cases to serious life-threatening cases. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, 2018 data indicates the risk of the West Nile flu virus will exist in the United States. The physical impact. Oakland County has designated $191,000 to be distributed to communities to address the West Nile virus. Southfield can obtain $9,441.73 under this funding program. Our net expenditures are expected to approach the grant value. These expenses are eligible for reimbursement from the Oakland County funding program. It is recommended that this office respectfully request this humble body of the council to approve this request. Consent agenda item H. In December 2016, Michigan legislators began taking various actions to understand and address the issue of statewide pension and retiree health care liabilities. They began to collect relevant data and establish a Blue Ribbon Commission of various stakeholders. That commission report, issued in the summer of 2017, recommended certain reporting requirements, restrictions on establishing new benefits without adequate funding, and creation of a municipal stability board to assist communities in finding ways to tackle their liabilities. In December 2017, the legislature passed Public Act 202 of 2017, that is PA 202, which codified many of the recommendations of the Blue Ribbon Commission. The state provided a next step in this particular Public Act 202. And the next step was we can request a waiver using Form 5584, which permit the city of Southfield to provide some background information to the state so that further steps by the Municipal Stability Board intervention can be prioritized. Consent agenda item I. Authorization to apply for Oakland County 2018 Local Road Improvement Matching Fund Pilot Program. The Department of Public Works is seeking permission to apply for the Oakland County 2018 Local Improvement Matching Fund Pilot Program to assist in the cost of reconstruction of Lockdale Street and Case Avenue. The purpose of the program is to improve economic development in Oakland County and to assist municipalities by offering limited funds from state stationary revenue sharing funds for specific targeted and maintenance and or improvement projects. The fiscal impact of this will, the estimated cost of the reconstruction of Lockdale Street and Case Avenue is $3,003,470, and the maximum 2018 Local Road Improvement Program matching fund is $172,588. The city required match to be paid from the major street fund. Council, that is the extent of the consent agenda items.
Mr. Chair?
President, before we take the vote on the consent agenda items, I wanted to pull consent agenda item D for discussion.
Okay. D will pull consent item D for additional discussion.
Mr. President?
Mr. Vandermark.
I'd like to approve consent agenda items A, B, C, E, F, G, H, and I.
Support.
It was approved by motion by Mr. Vandermark and supported by Mr. Frazier that we approve all the agenda items except D, which is being pulled for additional discussion. Is there any discussion, additional discussion on these items? How do you vote, Council? All in favor? All in favor, aye. Those opposed? Okay, that, ayes have it. We will now open item D, approval of assignment of industrial facility exemption certificate with AutoLib.
Yeah, I was just looking over the information over the weekend, and it just said that there was an exemption of taxes for 12 years. And I know it's been customary practice for us to approve a 5-year on tax exemption, so I wondered why the 12 years.
I guess that decision was made when they approved the taxes. But we can get additional discussion on if there's any additional history that it was approved when AutoLib came to it.
What was approved? Is the tax? They're asking for the approval this evening.
No, they're changing they're changing from AutoLib to Veoneer. It is changing the contract.
I understand that, but I'm talking about the exemption for the taxes. This is 12 years, this is longer than what we usually grant.
Right, but I'm going to probably refer to the lawyer and or any other staff, but when AutoLib came on board, the 12 years was approved at that point in time, and that was perhaps there was discussion dealing with the whether or not to do that and or something else. But the intent today was to just transfer that right over to Veoneer. But go ahead, Mrs. Owen.
All the company has done is they've changed their name. They're now operating under a different name.
I understand that, but I wasn't aware that the 12-year tax exempt status had been given to them.
That's what we had approved at the time.
When was it?
I would have to pull that file.
September 25th, last year.
Yeah. Mr. Menema.
I think there's a difference when we did the 5-year versus the 12-year. I believe that the 5-year was more of the rehabilitation help and tax abatements that we do versus this, which was a brand new $32 million building. We're giving them the exemption. I can't pull it up quick enough yet, but it was a different tax financing mechanism than a normal 5-year exemption.
And I think I recall too the chart that when our economic development person came on board, if the development and the project was of certain millions of dollars, this was agreeable to the state that we could grant the 12 years. And that investment they were making in X billions of dollars allowed that level of exemption. If it was approved by council, we could go to 12 years.
And that's understandable, I just didn't recall that. And this is a significant capital investment, so that's understandable. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize, I don't have the full file in front of me, but there was, if I recall correctly, a net to the city of about $250,000 a year in taxes. The abatements of that in question, it was a 198 where they will retain 50% of the taxes, and we can provide a summary. The action tonight before you does not change any of the amounts or the terms. It just simply recognizes that the company has a new name.
I think Mr. Morrison, it was a good question. And, I think it was explained at that particular time. That was the decision. Okay, we now have item G back on the floor.
Mr. President, I'd like to move approval of consent agenda item D.
All right, motion by Mr. Cruz, second by Ms. Morris, that we approve consent agenda item D. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda item D is approved. We will now have communications. Ms. Pamela Gerald.
Residents, you know who I am. I am still your independent voice for Southfield. On Monday, March the 12th, Councilwoman Tanya Morris gave a meeting at the Southfield Public Library. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss the Neighborhood Revitalization Initiative, or NRI. The goal was to show residents how to avoid foreclosure on their homes and how to prevent their homes from becoming a part of the group of properties owned by the NRI. At this meeting, there were 2 representatives from the Oakland County Treasurer's Office. Noticeably, there were no other members of the City Council president at this questionable meeting. On March the 19th, after the study session, I raised the issue with the city attorney and the city administrator about whether or not this meeting was inappropriate or a violation of the city's ethics policy called the City Officials and Management Employees Ethics Policy. Remember, the ethics policy was put in place because Councilwoman Sylvia Jordan, the former councilwoman, attempted to give an event using all the city's resources under the auspices of a justice forum, but it was really a self-entitled event to promote her candidacy for mayor, and she lost. Because of her efforts, her event was what you refer to as a prima facie case of professional misconduct and abuse of power. If you refer to your draft of the ethics policy, section 8, and it's the areas that I have highlighted, it speaks to the fact that this should not be done. So I asked a few questions and I did not get any answers from the city attorney or the city administrator. And the question was, the foreclosure meeting, was it only sent, this letter, was this letter only sent to residents that were delinquent in their taxes? If so, how did this list get to the councilwoman to invite only the people that were delinquent in their taxes? I want to know at the meeting, was there a representative from the NRI organization to discuss these homes? I want to know, how was the library used and how did we get the library to give this room for this particular purpose? Now, you know, if the residents are not able to use what they pay for, which is the city library with the village, I want to know, how can one single council person use the city staff, the city's resources, the city edifice to give something that none of you knew about? And I asked you, I asked Verkasi, I think it was Frazier, and I did ask you, Fred, how is this possible? So answer my questions tonight, or I'm gonna use the library for something. My time is up.
Mr. Gerard Mullen.
Good evening. My name is Gerard Mullen, Southfield Citizens Oversight Committee, Post Office Box 155, Southfield, Michigan 48037. Tonight, I'd like to talk about Section 11.22. Section 11.22 in the Southfield City Charter. 11.22 is entitled Employee Retirement Board, also known as the Service Board. The Service Board is made up of 7 members, in which, quote, 3 of the members shall be the same members that serve in the Civil Service Commission, unquote. In other words, all three members of the Civil Service Commission are ex officio members of the Service Board. Sad to say, not all three current members of the Civil Service Commission are currently members of the Service Board in violation of section 11.22. Only one member is a member of the Service Board, the second member is an alternate on the Service Board, and the third civil service member is not on the Service Board at all, in clear violation of section 11.22. This could easily be checked out in the Southfield City Calendar, in the 2018 Southfield City Calendar. I refer you to the Boards and Commissions page, page 3. Why do screw-ups like this happen here in Southfield? Well, it seems that you folks here on this council are not that keen on enforcing section 11.22 of the city charter or any other section of the city charter. For example, take section 6.1, which states that the Southfield city administrator must be a Southfield resident. Yes, a Southfield resident. Makes perfect sense to me, but instead you folks here on this council look the other way and allow the city administrator to live not in Southfield, but far, far, far away in Taylor, Michigan. My time is now running out, so I will be signing off for now. This has been part 3 on the Civil Service Commission. 2 weeks from tonight, on April 30th, I will be presenting part 4, the final episode, so stay tuned. As Patti LaBelle would say, the best is yet to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person to be recognized would be Mr. Harold Hill.
Hello, my name is Harold Hill. It's fun following Mr. Gerard. 22300 Seminole Street, Southfield, Michigan, 48033. I was initially going to talk about the implementation of the Robert's Rules of Order. I'm glad to see you guys are implementing it. Keep up the good work. So I'd like to change directions this time though, and just talk about something that I came up with May 8th, the 2018 special election. Thank you, Mr. Councilman Frazier, for bringing up the fact that it is a school board election and not the council. But I think that our people in Southfield deserve to hear about the special election because you don't hear much out there about it. So I just looked up some information and just wanted to kind of pass it along to those listening. What is the May 18th sinking fund millage? It is a tax to all properties for the next 10 years to fund improvements and repairs to Southfield School District facilities. The tax revenues are generated to exclusively used for the purpose of stated in the ballot language. No money is borrowed, so there is no debt issued to the taxpayers. So that's one portion. And I guess because they had a decrease in the refinancing of their bonds of 0.7 mil reduction in school debt, they can pass that forward and they wanted to add 0.7 mils onto the new tax. My question is there a reduction in the tax because they closed so many schools, like Southfield High, or Southfield Lathrop? They closed that school and several others. So is that one of the reasons why there's I'm not talking pro or con on the issue, but I just like to find out more information. And also, all of the districts or what is it called, voting facilities are not open for the special election. But if it's a tax for all houses, will everybody get a chance to vote? Because that's what it says here. It says tax on all properties for the next 10 years. So I just wanted clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now recognize Mr. Gregory Human.
Greg Healer, Southfield, Michigan. I would come before you to say thank you for looking into the handicap problem with the parking. Thank you, Lane Taylor, for going in further than looking at spaces that were not handicap accessible. Thank you, Mayor, for then looking in surrounding areas that weren't ADA approved or size, whether they had passed ADA approved, but a handicapped person could not get in there. And so some of the parking spaces, I looked at the linear, they were spots that were actually islands, and then a spot for even a regular person could go. Or then they had the signs stuck in front of where you're supposed to walk in between for somebody to park. So it's like, okay, should these spots be handicap accessible or not handicap accessible? Should some of the ramps that we walk up and down be accessible for handicaps? When you park in a handicap spot, you generally have this sticker on there or a plate. It should say the years should end. If it's blank here, that's not a handicapped person parking there. That's somebody else who's just got some blue sticker up there. And then the ditches up here, all those ditches should match the person that's driving that vehicle. That handicapped person should be inside that vehicle. It shouldn't be somebody that's driving around with a handicapped sticker. I also wanted to thank you for looking into all the other issues, Mr. Meadowbaum, with asking about had they picked up my yard waste and everything else. We'll find out this weekend, since we had the storm. Because they did the first time skip a week and did Lois Lane. But I just generally appreciate everybody when they bring up questions, looking into, and then getting back to me and responding to. I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to the council portion, and we do have one travel report, expense report.
Mr. President,
Mr. Frazier.
I move that we approve the travel expense report for Daniel Brightwell to the Michigan Political Leadership Program in Deerfield.
Support. Moved by Mr. Frazier, supported by Mr. Cruz, that we approve the travel expense report for Daniel Brightwell. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. The council portion, Mr. Council.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there has been some notices sent out to the owners of gas stations regarding their ice boxes. And I'd like to have council put it on one of our study sessions to look at it, at the ordinance. The code states that auto-related, it does not say ice chests or boxes, it says auto-related. When you talk about auto-related, it's more than gas stations, so everything that is auto-related. And I think that sending out notices just to gas stations is totally wrong. And I bring up the point that we just had an emergency, we have half the town with no electricity. People are running around looking for ice. And because there is ice available at these facilities, they're helping out in emergency ways. I don't think that unless they're in very movement, right away, handicapped, or whatever it be, that they not be excluded from using them at the gas station. Most of them are outside and they're filled from outside, and they are something that people use each and every day, especially when there's an emergency. And I'd like to have that one of our discussions and help these people out. We had an individual here from a gas station when we had the hearing a couple weeks ago. I don't think we addressed his concern or any of the other members who received notices. But I'm opposed to just them picked up out of the way, meaning just gas stations, and doing away with these ice boxes when they are, at the time of emergency, very, very valuable to residents.
Mr. President, that item will be referred to the legislative committee, and we'll study it and bring it back to the council.
Okay. That sounds appropriate. Mr. Miller.
Yes, I just want to, a couple of reminders for people that tomorrow is tax day, so please make sure you get those mailed in, postmarked, in order to try and get a refund, or hopefully a refund, and hopefully you don't owe any taxes. But also, on April 21st, Saturday, we're having Household Hazardous Waste Day at our facility on 8 Mile and Evergreen between 9 and 2, so you can get rid of everything that the trash pickup usually will not take. We also have our Southfield Community 60th Anniversary Celebration on April 29th. Here at the pavilion from 2 to 6, we're going to have a lot of different entertainment options and different things for everyone, young and old. Again, that's April 29th, the Southfield's 60th anniversary from 2 to 6 here in the pavilion. So, I know it doesn't seem like summer's around the corner, but summer jobs are around the corner. And our Parks and Rec department is looking for for many different applicants, from counselors to lifeguards for all their different activities. I also want to let residents know that with the power outage that many people experienced yesterday, myself included, that Public Works sent out 3 crews today with a chipper machine, and they're going through the neighborhoods trying to get rid of as much branch brush that may have fallen that has been sent to the curb. So please be patient while they send out their crews. I also wanted to address several of the speakers tonight to try and clarify some information. Mr. Hill mentioned the school board elections. While he's correct that it's not something that we did as a council, I did receive a postcard from the public schools, and the reason that they had a 0.07 mil reduction was because they refinanced some bonds last year, which had a reduction in their millage, and they're trying to, I believe, add another 0.07 for their sinking fund. I hope that helps clarify that. And then through the chair to the city attorney, Mr. Mullen mentioned the city administrator and his residency requirements. I believe that state law trumps our city charter, and our state law does not allow residency requirements. Can you clarify that, please?
Right, in general, that's absolutely correct. The amendment to the state law was done, I'd say in the late 90s, to prohibit residency requirements, except under certain situations. And that position is not one of them where it would be allowed. And so, yes, clearly state law would trump the charter. And that's true on several items that are brought up regarding the charter. And at some point, if council would like, we could go through those. And I know the legislative committee is going to be looking at the charter, but a lot of these, there was either a charter amendment that changed what's in this paper version here, or there was some change in state law that takes priority and preempts what's in our charter. So generally, those are the explanations for a lot of what's raised. But.
Thank you. And then lastly, I want to address Ms. Gerald with this May 12th meeting that I get the Councilman Morris had. I'd like to know some more information. Being a member of the Southfield Housing Board, which oversees some of the NRI information, I'd like to know more about that.
Yeah, the meeting was March 12th, and it was really born out of a conversation that I had with Oakland County Treasurer Andy Meisman. I believe they had already done a foreclosure prevention workshop sometime in the fall of 2017, and we talked about trying to just get more information and resources out to those individuals that were at risk for housing foreclosure. And so really it was his idea, and I just aided him in trying to get other resources there to the individuals that were at risk for foreclosure.
So if I may, I guess why was the council not invited? I mean, obviously foreclosure prevention is something that's important for all of us. We don't want to see anyone go through it, but is there a reason that we were not informed of that meeting?
No, it wasn't. It was just another foreclosure prevention workshop that Andy Meisner was conducting, that I was partnering with him on. So I'm sure he's going to be doing more of those, and I'm sure the council is more than welcome to attend. I think, again, the last one that they had was either in October or November of 2017. So moving forward, when we have more of those, we'll definitely make sure we invite all the council.
So I guess my question through the chair to the city attorney. Is this, it was mentioned that it's a possible ethics violation and that this is something that, I know that in the past, Councilman Frazier has addressed this issue of meetings that some council members know about, some don't. I wanted to know what would be our next steps to really ensure this doesn't happen. Whether or not this was done by the Oakland County Treasurer's Office, use of the public library, I think that there should be something in place. This seems to be a little bit of a reoccurring theme, if you will.
Well, obviously, I have no specifics in terms of what took place, and I think that's what the question originally was. The ethics policy that the council passed a few years back, did include a provision dealing with the issue of using city space or city resources. And as I recollect the discussion, it either is a city event that's held in city premises, and then that would take the collective agreement or vote of the council that it's a city event, in which case then city resources are appropriate. Or if it was an individual council person, there would either have to be some permission, or if it was a de minimis use of city property, city resources, such as I recollect, the language that was incorporated was the coffee hours, like a meeting, some kind of routine meeting with constituents. And I think that it was kind of agreed on, like quarterly, would be kind of a de minimis use of city resources for like meetings with constituents. So, how this meeting fits in on the backdrop of the ethics policy, certainly if the council wants that reviewed, certainly can do that. But that's my recollection of kind of what precipitated the ethics policy and kind of how council came to a resolution of those issues.
So I look forward to a discussion. We want to have that on the next committee of the whole to discuss how we want to move forward in handling that, because I know that there are elected officials that have coffee hours, and so we just need to have some clarity or have something written down so that there are no ethics rules violated.
So another question I have through the chair is, if I heard correctly, it was part of the foreclosure prevention was discussion about the neighborhood revitalization initiative. Were there representatives there from that organization? Or were they informed that there was going to be a discussion regarding their program?
No, the program was about giving resources to individuals who were at risk of losing their home. So you had people there from Step Forward, Michigan. You had people there who were from the Oakland County Treasurer's Office. Giving people the opportunity to apply for payment plans. So you did not have anyone there that wasn't in our library.
Was it open to the public, or was it?
It was specifically for individuals that were at risk for losing their homes to foreclosure.
Yes.
So it wasn't public.
How that list was obtained from the county treasurer? They sent out the invitations,
I got the list from the Oakland County Treasurer.
and they invited the individuals.
I invited the individuals.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I do think that we do need to have a discussion about this this issue that keeps reoccurring, because especially with a lot of moving parts, especially as relates to the NRI program with the city of Southfield, I think we need to set very clear boundaries with that, as well as having events at the library, here in the chambers, and other places. If other council members are having coffee hours, again, they're more than welcome to, but I think that every council member should be apprised of that, should know about it, because we're council members, but we act as one body.
Let me address that briefly. I became aware of this on a going forward basis. I will still plan to meet with the individuals involved, and now that it has been expanded, I'll get with the attorney to have the appropriate meeting with all kinds of people with respect to what is allowed and what is not allowed, and what is ethical and what is not unethical. And I became aware of this and that. It was going to be a one-on-one meeting, but I think now that it is explored, and it'll be good to get all 7 council people involved, and anyone else and clearly our city attorney and anybody else that we need to get involved. So I will work with the city attorney, the clerk, to schedule something and to go over these particular issues, because it has come to my attention that a couple of these things have popped up over the years, the last few years. So it's time to make sure everybody's on the same page, everybody's we're in lockstep with respect to why the council is here and what we will do to serve the constituents that we serve, and we'll do it in an ethical and legal manner.
What are the consequences if the ethics policy is violated? What are the consequences? Because if there's no consequences, then get rid of the policy.
Gerald, please, you're not being recognized. So I will arrange for a meeting, and we will, as a council, with consideration of our legal counsel and the charter and everything else that rules this particular body, it will be looked at in that particular manner. So it will be addressed.
Thank you.
Anything else for the council portion of the meeting? Now we move on to the mayor.
I just have 2 quick things that I wanted to mention. First of all, an annual event that we is hosted every April in the Southfield Pavilion is the Michigan Modernism Show. That's on this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, featuring mostly mid-century items, art, and home furnishings, everything from rugs to paintings in China and so on. Friday night is the preview night. It includes entertainment, complimentary food and wine, and the admission is $75. It's a benefit for several art clubs. And then in conjunction with that, but 2 weeks later, will be the return of the Southfield Mid-Century Modern Architecture Tour. This is sponsored by the Southfield Historical Society and the Art Deco Society of Metropolitan Detroit. Tickets are available through me or online through the Detroit Area Art Deco Society or DetroitModernism.com. This is a 2.5-hour tour around Southfield on a Sunday afternoon, May 6th, from 2 to 4:30 p.m. And begins at Sherazadic Synagogue, and then we'll Shriners Auditorium, the North Van Theater, the Reynolds Building, and Emmanuel Lutheran Church. And tickets are $25 and $30 on the day of the tour. And again, they can be purchased either by contacting me or going to the website, DADS, Detroit Area Art Deco Society, which is www.daads.org, or DetroitModernismWeek.com. And every year it sells out, so get your tickets early. Thank you.
Administration? Yes, Mr. President. I just want to comment on the dialogue regarding NRI and the Southfield nonprofit. I want to just remind people here, as we go through this exercise, I somewhat feel the nonprofit's role is being soiled. And we have an entity that, and I've said this to the council before, December 31st to 14th, without the recent work that's been done, you would have had about 400 people lose their rent subsidies. You had an entity that was losing money every year, and all of a sudden there's a very creative financing, a lot of hard work, some tax credit work. We positioned that entity to have a net of $10.6 million that is now working with the city and doing some real good. Throughout the city, every section of the city, I can show you where our values, where what we've done. Yes, people have lost their homes, not by any wrongdoing in the city of Southfield, or any wrongdoing of the Southfield nonprofit, or any wrongdoing of the Southfield NRI. People failed to pay their taxes, not 1, 2, 3, in most cases 5, 6 years. Exorbitant interest rates were paid. Had we not acted, someone in the marketplace would have acquired those properties. And I can guarantee you this, no entity would have put the type of money we have put into these homes. We've had homes that have had losses as high as, in excess of $60,000. But what did we accomplish with that? We actually have homes in neighborhoods where we have comps in excess of $85 a square foot, where when we started this, you only had $45 a square foot. So this has always been about raising the value of our homes and our housing stock for everyone. As an administrator, I sit here meeting after meeting. I decide very seldomly do I respond to a lot of comments and publicly, but I think this is a group, an entity that's done a lot to benefit the city. Our task, and as we turn 60 the end of this month, is incredible. I mean, we're rebuilding our infrastructure. We've got the Northland challenge in front of us. Just this afternoon, I met with our development team, met with 2 bankers from a local bank, and we're going through the merits of Northland, property across the street, the smart zone. Well, we know this, in order to survive, we need to figure out in a 10-year period how we get another $1 billion worth of value back in our books. Tonight you acted on an item regarding our longevity costs, our retiree health care. And as we indicated in the letter, we're pleased with the funding levels of our CSRS pension system, as well as our police and fire pension system. We have a lot of work to do with our retiree health care system. Well, we are in better shape than most communities. We have a lot of work. Earlier, Council Morris, during the study session, asked me what our revenue sharing number is. That number is $6.5 million. Only a few years ago, it was $9.5 million. Proposal A is costing us about $400 million in value not being taxed. I'm confident with the interest we see in the building department and the activity that with the right strategy and continual leadership, we can get to that growth strategy. But it really takes all of us working together, the same team. I recognize we will have our differences in how things are done, but we have to keep a unified front. The stakes are too high. I've told some of my staff that, professionally at my age, this is probably my last hurrah. And I plan on going out on a winning streak, knowing that when I do leave here, the city's well positioned to place and meet the economic challenges in front of us. So, $1 billion in 10 years, we can do it. Northland, one of the statements that one of our consultants made today is, if we don't win that fight, that's our southern flank. We got to hold that part of the fort down. If we're not successful there, the cancer and economic deterioration will continue to spread. What we're doing in our neighborhoods, people at Michigan Municipal League are talking about it. Only a few weeks ago, it was recommended that we nominate the activities of the nonprofit, the city, and the NRI for recognition, because what we've done to stabilize those values. So, let's continue to keep a positive front, work together, move the city forward. This is about the values for all of us in our properties and the long-term success of this community, so we can get another 60 years of growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Attorney?
Nothing, thank you.
All right.
I just wanted to address Mr. Hill's question. He spoke and talked about the whatever piece of paper that he had that talked about every house. As stated 2 weeks ago, the city of Southfield, the taxing jurisdiction according to the school district, is divided into 3 school districts. We have Birmingham schools, we have Oak Park schools, and we have Southfield schools. So according to where you live, you are taxed according to that school district. So it's every house that will be in the Southfield School District will be taxed according to whatever taxes that the Southfield School District has put in place. Same as for Birmingham and same as for Oak Park. So every standing home here in this jurisdiction will be taxed differently when it comes to our public education. Thank you.
Mr. Treasurer, the planner, assessor, engineer, nothing to schedule. We have an ordinance to enact.
Mr. President,
Mr. Frazier.
I move that we enact ordinance number 1691.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Frazier, supported by Ms. Taylor, that we enact ordinance number 1691. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 1691 is enacted. Seeing nothing else, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.